Mike, turn your games down.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another special episode of Games My Mom Found. I am Mike Albertin, and who's all with me tonight?
We've got Vincent Goodwin from the Some of My Friends Read Comics podcast and the That Was a Game video series.
I am Blake Anglin, and I was in a local Christmas parade when I was 8, so you may have seen me there.
My name is Lucas Adams, and I am currently in law school, so games are the only thing getting me through that, and I'm ready to talk about them.
I love it.
And welcome. You're first time on the show.
Yes, this is my first time on the show. I'm excited.
And you
Get
came
away
for
from
very...
I love it. Get away from the law and get into the important things of gaming.
And gaming is very important. You guys came for a very special. So we haven't done this in, God, well over a year. I can't even remember. I did this once. We did where we covered the year 2007 in gaming. And I've been meaning to do this for a while, but due to me just doing other things, I didn't get around to it. So we are going to be covering a year in gaming 2011.
Woo.
So we're just going to kind of dive through the year, talk about things that happened. I have no idea where this conversation is going to go. It's just going to go wherever it ends up. But there's one game that I thought we should talk about first that really encapsulates the year that everyone was waiting for 10 years to come out. We should talk about Duke Nukem Forever.
As soon as you said 10 years.
I've got it on my list. Great. What a fucking shit show. Can we throw that out there to start?
I have actually never played this game, but I own multiple copies of it, and I really want to play it.
You own multiple copies?
And you really want to play it?
I didn't say I was saying, okay?
It's so bad. I just want to put that on record. It's so bad.
Is it as bad as people say it is?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I think so.
I got through the opening sequence, which actually isn't terrible. It's like you're on the football field and you're fighting like the big boss and stuff like that. It's raining and it doesn't look terrible and it's fine. And then that sequence ends and everything that follows is just straight garbage.
It's super accurate for sure.
Oh, the reason I own multiple copies of that game because that game was dirt cheap and I picked up copies for like $1.
Well, yeah, and that's the kind of like the theme for 2011 for me is this was the year that I think Steam really broke open for me at least, where like Steam sales were ridiculous. Because I remember buying Duke Nukem 3D for like, I would say $5 to $10, maybe 4 months after release on Steam. I also bought like good games like Deus Ex Human Revolution. They were only like 4 months old for like $5 to $10 on Steam. Like sales for Steam were insane in 2011. I don't know if that's the way now and that quick, but they definitely weren't. But in 2011, it was like a game would drop to $5 to $10 4 months after release.
Okay, I don't think they're that good.
It was a good time. It was a good time because this was the year I was like, I have to buy a gaming computer because like games are so much cheaper than like they are on Xbox and PS3 right now.
It is insane that you can start to see the slow just kind of takeover that Valve had on on the gaming world with Steam just really hitting its stride in 2011. I mean, like you said, you had the sales, they were still putting out games. It was just a good year.
Yeah, I've got a few Steam games on here at the list that I hope we can get to for sure.
Oh, we will. I just had to mention Duke Nukem Forever because of how much of a shit show that game was and how excited people were.
You know, if you're going to start with Duke Nukem Forever, I think for people who kind of wanted that Duke Nukem experience, there's a much better game in 2011 that came out. And Duke Nukem is actually in it for the remaster, and that's Bulletstorm, which I would argue is one of the biggest underrated gems of the last generation.
I categorized Bulletstorm under my dumb games I love category that I really hate. It's
so great.
It like adds like a Tony Hawk like multiplier to things where you have like a grappling hook where you pull a dude towards you. So you get points for that, and then you kick him in the nuts, so you get points for that, and then you kick that, and he flies into a cactus, which then has a multiplier of that. And it's just like, holy shit. I mean, it's a dumb first-person shooter at heart, but man, these multipliers and just the different point ways that you can like kick dudes into cactuses, like, oh my gosh, it's like just chef's kiss. Like,
and it's a really good game.
Yeah,
the first game by People Can Fly Studios, if I remember right.
Definitely the first one I was aware of them for that because they ended up making a God Did they make a Gears of War game or two?
They did. Yeah, so it was they were an offshoot of Epic, if memory serves, and they kind of like a team from Gears made Bulletstorm form People Can Fly, and then I think they did maybe Gears of War Judgment, perhaps.
Yeah, that is a spinoff.
Yeah.
Did they do Outriders or something this year? Is that what that game was?
I believe so. Yeah,
I believe.
Yeah, and that was their first title.
Such a fun game. Such a fun little and also dirt cheap.
It is dirt cheap, and I think what's so cool about it is like you were mentioning that multiplier system, and they tie that into progression in the game, which I think is really smart for encouraging you to kind of get creative with your kills and use all of your tools. It's a really short game, which is probably the biggest knock I have for it, but it is consistently introducing you to new areas, new set pieces, new weapons. So like even once you get through a weapon, you're like, oh, like I feel like you can actually go into a menu and like look at the list of kills and see, like, oh, there's 4 kills that I just haven't gotten yet that maybe I need to pay attention to the environment more, get a little bit more creative to get those last 4. And then all of a sudden the game just throws a new gun at you and there's 20 new options for these ridiculous ways to kill people. It's just, like I said, I understand that people have a problem that it's short, but it had like a vision in mind, and I think it is the perfect length of not overstaying its welcome. All the guns are unique and all the areas are unique, and it just steadily introduces cool concepts before it kicks you out the door and says, hey, this didn't sell well enough. You're never going to play a sequel. Until
we remaster you 10 years later for some reason.
And then add Duke Nukem.
Oh, but the earlier comment, I have 2 comments or a couple comments I want to read real fast that I was going through, and this one from Clayton Keith. What an incredible year, but obviously the best game was Duke Nukem Forever. I had to put that in there.
I know Clayton, he's not even being ironic. That's a fucking legitimate statement from him.
And also from Michael Miller, he said Bulletstorm or Battlefield 3. So we're not the only people that are like, man, they love Bulletstorm. I don't remember this game. I want to say I own multiple copies of it too, because I've been meaning to replay it and I just haven't. Oh, one thing about me is I buy games over and over again. I bought them for 360. I bought them from PS3, and then if they re-release it for Xbox One or PS4, I'll buy it again. I also buy it on Steam a lot of times. So
does it like stack your motivation? Like, all right, this is the third copy. Like, I got to play it.
I don't even like. I mean, this is also the course of like 10 years or some of this stuff, where it's like I don't even, because I had my whole 360 collection, and then I boxed it all up when I moved in with my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, and because we had a small apartment, and then I rebought everything on PS3 so I could replay it because I love buying games. So I'm buying stuff like under $10, like $5. I mean, I'm talking the cheap GameStop or buy 2 get 1 free, like all those sales. So I was getting stuff cheap. And then when I got Steam and I got into a gaming PC, and Steam likes to put stuff in for like, a couple bucks or under $5, or I get Fanatical bundles, I found myself rebuying them again.
Stacking motivation multiplayers on top of each other.
So that's how I have ended up with multiple copies of some stuff. So do
you guys like that in games? Whenever you can see the multipliers pop up on the screen, I feel like some people are turned off by it.
I like it.
Depends on, like, for a high score type game. You mean? Yeah. I like bigger numbers are better. Like let's put my multiplier up in the thousands. Let's fucking do this.
Yeah, I mean, it creates you wanting to do like that kind of like chain, like Tony Hawk, and I think it creates this like high like dopamine rush, and you're like, oh my god, I strung all these together, and like, oh my gosh, you just see like the plus and the plus and the plus of Tony Hawk, and then it breaks, and you're like, damn it. So it's a really good feeling, and I like that. I like that back to like Uniracers and shit.
Uniracers. Let's just do a full podcast on that.
Okay, Here's one from Helen Platt, Assassin's Creed Brotherhood or L.A. Noire. I didn't even know Brotherhood and Revelations are both 2011.
That is really insane to me.
So, Brotherhood came out in 2010, actually, but it was...
Okay, so Steve's lying. It came out PC in 2011.
Yeah, yes. That's what
Okay, so I can talk about it that way. I fucking love Brotherhood.
Brotherhood is amazing. The last game that I was at the midnight release for, I actually really
wow.
Just for the multiplayer. That multiplayer looks so cool. And it was okay. I don't know if it lived up to the hype, but...
Is that the one where you pretend to, like, you kind of try to blend in with the crowd and then another real person tries to find you? Is that how that works?
Yeah, it's like Assassin's Creed Among Us, like way before, that existed. Like for real, just like open world, 10 people, one's the assassin, and you're trying to take people out. It was super cool in theory. In practice, like it didn't work out as well as you hoped. Man, what a cool idea.
I just love the story. But I mean, okay, so that doesn't make me as happy. So Revelation would have been the one that came out in 2011. I am not as big of a fan about Revelations. It's a good game.
I think it gets too much hate. I really do.
Oh.
Okay, let's talk about that. I mean, I'm not saying it's a bad game. I'm just saying that compared to Brotherhood, it is not as good as Brotherhood, in my opinion.
I think that is totally fair because I don't know, that series was just on such an upward swing from 2 being just really great, and then Brotherhood just upped the ante, and then you have Revelations, and I feel like it took some swings that it probably shouldn't have. The base building or the tower like defense stuff is not great. It really kind of like slows the pacing of that game down. But for people who are invested in that story, like it has some satisfying conclusions for Ezio's journey, in my opinion. And it's beautiful. Like if you just like those games and their settings and being able to climb up things and look at these ridiculous vistas, like it's a beautiful game and it's still a lot of fun.
I haven't played it. I've been meaning to go dive into that Assassin's Creed series on this show, but I haven't popped that cork yet.
Mm-hmm. Oh, long.
Oh yeah, that's why that hasn't happened yet. I love that series though. I unfortunately I fell off it after 4. I played 4. I played Rogue. I have never played Unity or Syndicate or any of the other ones. Not I own them. I just never. The podcast started. So
I jump into Assassin's Creed about once every quote unquote of their generations because I feel like the Valhalla, the Greek one, and the Egyptian one are all kind of the same mold. And then there's the ones kind of before it. Like I would say, like all the 2s are kind of the same, and then there's the pirate ones that kind of blend into like Rogue. So I popped into like Assassin's Creed 2. I think I popped into Black Flag, and I popped into Valhalla. And I feel like I've gotten like my vibe of what all the Assassin's Creed series is. They're all different, and especially the last 3 have been radically different than the earlier Assassin's Creed.
I just love the series.
Yeah, it's so much fun. Evolved. And there's so much cool stuff. I just love like the history because Revelations is Italy, right? That's the one we're talking about. It's Assassin's Creed 2 part 3.
Revelations is Italy and he goes to Turkey in Revelations.
Okay, and that's 2 part 3 with Ezio.
Yeah, that's the final.
That's the finale for Ezio's story,
which was nice. It needed to be wrapped up.
It was, and they do a good job of wrapping it up. I think like he gets a satisfying conclusion, I would argue, to his arc. But then it just kind of goes off the rails with the present day stuff, and I feel like
I love the present day stuff.
They just haven't found their footing since then. I mean, you can tell that things are starting to go off the rails with Revelations, but like that's still a very competent and well put together game. And then Assassin's Creed 3 comes out, which again I'm a little bit of a defender of, but that game has some problems.
Does anyone know what's going on like in the Assassin's Creed mythos now? Like currently, because I've played a number of them, and I don't think I can tell you at all.
From my understanding, they have put a lot of the focus for the present day stuff, or kind of like that mythos, into the DLC, or at least that's what I believe. That's how it was for Odyssey. So I think that stuff is there for people who are into it. Mm-hmm. But also, from my understanding, it's probably for the best, like taking a bit of a step back whenever it comes to those newer games and just being like, hey, we know that you guys want to run around in this Viking world and do dumb stuff. So we're just going to throw you in there and not really hold you back too much.
Well, here. Yeah. Oh, sorry, keep going.
Yeah, Valhalla had like a lady in a cabin I was briefly. But then I went right back to, and I think she was like on the run from something that happened in Odyssey, the Greek one. But I honestly didn't know. I mean, I didn't care because all I wanted to do was be a Viking. I didn't really care about like being a lady in present day cabins. If I want to do that, I'll play like Life is Strange or something.
Man, that's a good game. It's not 2011, but that's a good fucking game. Oh, we'll get there. Okay, from John Davis, Witcher 2. That is a game that I have only a couple people had said Witcher 2 on here. I'm trying to find some of them. I have actually never played the Witcher series. I own all of them on my PC.
6 times.
Well, actually, I bought Witcher 1 twice on GOG and Steam for no reason because I wanted them on Steam, and I own Witcher. I actually don't own Witcher 3, I don't think, because I've just never But yeah, I do own 2 copies of Witcher 2. I have it on Steam and I have it on 360. But
classic.
Hey,
Yeah,
what happened when you collect
Witcher 2 is so. I remember Witcher 2 being like hailed as like this real graphical powerhouse, and this was also when like GOG was starting to finally like take off. I know GOG launched a few years earlier, but CD Projekt Red, and Witcher 2 was a big deal like graphically, and people seemed to really like it. And then it got ported to like Xbox 360. And then obviously Witcher 3 was like big, like the hype cycle got like big with Witcher 3. I'm surprised Witcher 2 never got re-released for PS4 and Xbox
It
One.
should. I think it's definitely worthy of a re-release. That game is very good.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I mean, Cyberpunk took forever. Like I would feel like you just want to like satiate your fan base by throwing out Witcher 2 as like a remaster to be able to play it.
They threw out Cyberpunk 27 to satisfy their fan base, you know?
Yeah, after like 5 or 6 years. Like, I mean, because, I just like, if everybody loved Witcher 3 so much, Witcher 2 is not the same as my understanding, but I feel like that it was an easy re-release. You could have just thrown in the middle of that generation.
Yeah.
It's like, a Witcher trilogy is like inevitable at this point, right?
Well, you would think so, but Witcher 1 has never came out in anything but PC, if I remember correctly.
It's rough. It's a rough title compared to 1, 2, and 3 particularly.
Well, that happens.
No, sure, but maybe even more so than some other games. Like even 2 is pretty janky.
2 is rough. I think that would be a hard game to recommend people to go back to, especially if they've like a lot of people just jumped in at 3, because they really ironed out a lot of the combat and stuff like that with 3. And going back to 2, it definitely has this kind of jank feeling to the combat. But the story is just, like that storytelling, you can see the foundation of what they were building up to for 3. And it just has some solid story beats in there.
A top-notch introductory cutscene, too.
Absolutely.
Oh, so good.
Oh, and any last thing to say about Witcher 2? I have another game that I have to mention.
I don't think so. I think Witcher 2, I mean, like I said, it's a really good game, but it's just hard. I don't know. I would be hard pressed to recommend for people to go back to it unless you can put up with like this era. I mean, it's just one of those things of like, hey, are you willing to forgive this time period for how this combat plays out to get to the really good stuff with these characters in this story?
Yeah, it's not going to hold up as well as some of the games we're going to talk about today.
Is it as open? Is it as open as like Witcher 3?
No. It's split into like acts. So you have kind of big areas, but nothing like The Witcher, and you're moving up in the 3 acts, you're kind of like hub areas, decent in size, but nothing like The Witcher 3 in scope.
Oh, but you know what game holds up better than any game on this list? Yeah.
I have thoughts.
X-Men Destiny.
God damn it.
Episode 124. The reason I have to mention that is
late.
If Mike does listen to this episode, he loves that game. So I got to make sure I gave a shout out to X-Men Destiny. It's not good. It's
just crushes dreams.
No, I enjoyed the game when I played it. I will never go back to it. It's one of those games that you've bought it for $10. You get to play an X-Men game. It's the last X-Men game that we've gotten ever at this point that wasn't mobile. I mean, I know we got a Wolverine game coming out now from Insomnia, so they're finally doing something with the franchise again, but it was the last X-Men game for a long. It's okay. It's worth a playing if you got it for $10 or less.
So I do want to somehow circle back to Duke Nukem Forever, just in the sense that looking at some of these games, it was a bonkers year for some of these. So if you think like Duke Nukem Forever, I don't know if you guys remember El Shaddai, Ascension of the Metatron. If anyone's played this one. Shadows of the Dam, Saints Row 3, those are all like just bonkers experiences looking back. What a year.
Shadows of the Dam?
Oh yeah, I want to talk about that one. That's a great game.
That's another
Very
one
underrated.
I would like to hit on. Yes, it's in that Bulletstorm vein for me of not enough people played it, and they absolutely should.
Absolutely.
It's so weird.
They're all these games are fucking weird as shit. It's like 2011, just I don't know what they were doing, man, but they spit out some jams here.
I like Shadows of the Dam when I played. I want to say I played it right before the podcast started, or like before I was, stuck on this. But I did play through it. And I liked it because I own multiple copies of that too on 360 and PS3. And I just ran through it. It was like a fun, just third-person shooter. It was kind of stupid and a lot of dick jokes and a lot of X-rated jokes and you're going after a damsel wearing lingerie. But hey, it was fun. I had a
kind
good
of
time.
a spiritual precursor to the Evil Within games.
Oh,
Yeah, because it's Mikami and somebody else, right?
Yeah.
They're not as involved as you think they are.
Mikami and Suda is who it was.
They're not actually involved the way you think they are. Their names are just on the box, but they're not actually. They were in the original project, and they fell off when the project kept changing, but they left their names on the box anyway. They were not the director.
Even Suda? You talking about Suda, even?
I want to say both of them aren't really that involved later on in the game. There's a whole What Happened video from Matt McMuscles on YouTube that talks about Shadows of the Dam. If I remember correctly, they are not nowhere near as involved as you think they are.
Interesting, because this just screams Suda, like through it.
They started it,
but weirdness. Just
interesting.
I want to say they fell off because things kept changing, and they weren't nearly as involved as people think they are because it was all market. At that point, it was a marketing thing. It's like, oh, they're involved. Yeah, they're doing it, but I don't think they were completely. But watch that video. Level,
oh man, where you're traversing a giant naked woman in space, and it's just like this is like the height of art here in 2011.
Vince, did you ever play Shadows of the Dam?
No, I didn't. I missed out on it. I'm familiar with it. I'm not a big fan of the spooky games. I like the idea of the spooky games, but I don't. So when you say like, oh, it's like Evil Within, I'm like, ooh, that sounds interesting. And I'm like, wait a second, I love Evil Within, but then I hate playing Evil Within.
It's a shooter.
It's way more bonkers and like surreal than like the straight up horror or creepy.
It's not survival horror. It's more like RE4 survival horror, which isn't survival horror.
That's too spooky for me. I don't like it. I'm playing Resident Evil 2 this week, and I'm like, I like this, but I don't like
the remake or the original.
The remake. I don't.
That is one of the most That is the most terrifying game I have ever played on this show. That was the one game where I couldn't sleep. So
I don't like it.
So horror games.
I love it, but I don't like it. I also get it confused with Lollipop Chainsaw, which is a different game.
I think.
It's another Grasshopper manufacturer title.
Yeah.
Blake, you had mentioned El Shaddai. I have been wanting to play El Shaddai for years. I own it on 360 and PS3.
I think everyone should play. It's like, especially visually, it's a treat. Like straight up a treat. The gameplay itself is hit or miss, but
I've been wanting to do it on the show, but I had never found another volunteer. So now I think I might have.
I'm looking at it right now on my shelf.
So. It is something.
I've never played it. I again bought it for cheap.
Okay, I will be hitting both of you up later then.
I don't even know if I can say it's a good game, but it is one that's worth a play.
The point of this podcast is not to cover good games. The point of the podcast is just to make me play games.
There you go.
So we're just enablers for you? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
We are all his mom today.
You had said earlier that somebody mentioned L.A. Noire.
Yes.
How does everybody feel about that game? I feel like that's a very, kind of split emotions and reactions towards that game. But I overall enjoyed it whenever it came out.
So I guess my hot take may be that L.A. Noire fucking sucks.
No!
It does one thing good, and that's like facial animations, and the rest of it is garbage. Change my mind. I would love for someone to do that though, because I wanted to like it. It's got Dan Reichert in it.
That doesn't.
It's enough for me,
Why is he in that game?
2011 was a strange time.
Yeah, he would have been pretty famous to us, at least at that time.
I can lay out the case why I don't like it, I think, if that would.
No, I mean, I get it. I mean, there's things not to like. I mean, I personally, when I did play it, from what I remember, I haven't played it in years, but I did play it, and I remember really enjoying it. It was it was an experience. I mean, it's not, yes, you can't run over people. I know people had a problem with that. Yes, you drive around, the worlds are kind of empty. I'm fine with a world just being to get me from point A to point B and absorb what's happening. I'm completely okay with that. I mean, the game peaks when you're in homicide, and then it goes down as you fuck
Get
up.
Into arson.
Yeah, I mean, it goes down after a while, but it's a good experience. I mean, I love era pieces too. Like, I'm a big fan of things from different, like, I love this era, and I love games that are historical in some sense. So I enjoyed that. Hell, you get to go after the Black Dahlia murder. I mean, from fucking history like that. To me, that was like, whoa. You don't catch.
I think that's what does it for me with the game. In a lot of these games that came out this year is just 2011 was full of studios or developers trying to do unique things. And I can't think of another game that just goes for it so much on this idea of of being a realistic detective.
But
And some people may find that boring, or, that the facial animations don't work as well as they could for the interrogation scenes and stuff like that. But it was such a just bizarrely unique experience. And like you said, that world, it's not super filled, but it really feels like that time period. Like they did a good job of their art direction and just making it feel like you really are a detective in this time period.
One of the issues with this game is also the fact that Rockstar published it, so people were expecting a Grand Theft Auto game, I think, and it's not at all. And two, there's also another What Happened video from Matt Muscles where he talks all about the development of this game, which was really freaking rocky because the guy that ran the studio was not the best boss.
Yeah, I've heard this.
Because did they dissolve after this, Team Bondi? Did they dissolve after the?
Oh, they lost so much money on this. Yeah.
Nobody
made money in this situation. They spent so much on this game, and I only own one copy of this game because I bought this game for 360, and it was one of the games, like, my son was 7 at the time. I'm like, you can play this because you can't run people over, and he wasn't going to figure out how to go to do the mission, so he would just drive the car, and I'm like, and then when eventually I never got my copy back. It's actually sitting at my ex's garage, and I've been trying to get it back, and they won't give it back to me because he doesn't live there anymore.
It's the second inexplicable remastered title as well. So we have Bulletstorm remastered and LA Noire remastered. I'm not sure anyone was necessarily screaming for either of those to happen.
Bondi, whoever published it was, because it helped them recoup some of their costs.
Straight by
Honestly, you might need to rebuy the remaster if you want.
I want the remaster.
The 360 version was on 3 discs, wasn't it? So you're gonna have to find all 3 of those discs to play through the game.
Well, this sounds like a fun quest.
I have a PS3 copy of it.
Doubt.
I don't think I have this on PC actually, but no, I've been wanting to rebuy it. I don't go to GameStops anymore because one I used to think I loved, that might have noticed by now, is that I loved going to GameStops and just looking at what they had, and I loved finding cheap stuff, for under $10 all the time. You'd find random copies, now that GameStop is dying pretty much, like that went away, and I miss that so much. I miss going in and finding random ass titles for cheap. I miss it so much.
I just do it digitally now. I still get that rush of
I do with Steam. Yeah.
I will say for to knock LA Noire a little bit, this was at a time in my life whenever I would go for like achievement hunting and try to get all the achievements whenever I play through a game. And in that game, you have to drive every vehicle in the world, but there is no way to get vehicles to spawn for you like that you need. So like you can get through 60 of them and say you need 2 more. You're just running around hopping in vehicles hoping that a new vehicle pops up for you, because you can't really tell the difference between them, and you don't know, like, there's no reliable spot, like that car is going to be in this spot of the map every time, and it was miserable.
So when you say the difference, I mean, is it just like one car model that hops in? It's like, well, this is what this is now. Like,
yeah, so if you get into a new car, it'll pop up and be like, hey, this is this model of this car. It's unlocked for like your logs now and stuff like that. Congratulations, which happens fairly often in the start. But then whenever you're searching for the last car you need in this open world and there's not a set spot for it to pop up, it becomes incredibly frustrating.
I need the fucking Oldsmobile. Like, where's it at? It's like the worst, the shittiest Easter egg hunt possible. Where's the beater I need to finish off the achievement?
Yeah, I was an achievement whore at one point, but that went away. Yeah, I would not. That would have been miserable.
This game is where it started to go away. I got so frustrated.
Literally ruined it.
In most games of open worlds, like Grand Theft Auto, for example, there always will be a spot where that car is going to spawn in some parking lot and you can steal it. So, but this game, you can't really steal people's cars, if I remember correctly, right?
I believe you can.
But not if they're like just parked, right? Or maybe you can. God, it's been a while. Maybe you probably can. Never mind. But things don't have locations.
You're a cop, just be like, hey, I need this for a special
pull out
case.
The badge. Yeah.
Pull out the badge. You can make them get
Cop
out.
things.
I like the Grand Theft Auto 3-way. Just pull them out of the car. Hey, what are you doing? And you jump in the car. Grab
So someone who's more familiar, I can't remember, is either there's no fail states or it just continues on regardless of whether. So like with the actual cases, like you could figure them out or not, but the game just kind of continues on its rails either way.
I think it just continues.
Yes.
See, that's what I didn't like about it. It's like the stakes could not be lower.
Yeah,
like you could falsely accuse everyone, and that he just continues on his career.
But I'm a different gamer, though. I'm the kind of guy that would laugh at a funeral, but I'm the kind of guy that would have a game where
Don't
it
believe me,
just
you soon will.
it just I can hold my hand, it can push me in the right direction. I don't care. I just enjoyed the experience of playing said game usually. I'm different. I'm not. I mean, I did beat Dark Souls, and I love Dark Souls, but I for the most part, especially because of this podcast, I love a game that just kind of helps me along when I'm being dumb. If I'm being stupid, just push me in the right direction. I'll just want to keep enjoying your game. I want to see what there is to offer that you put all these hours in and made. I don't care if it's easy. Well, I care if it's not hard. I care if it's hard, but I like if it's easy. So
I guess, yeah, it's not the difficulty. It's just like the game doesn't give a shit whether you're right or wrong, or like throwing innocent people in jail, guilty. They don't fucking care. It's just like, all right, here's.
It is the 1940s.
I guess that's
so hey, I mean, it's realistic, I guess, right?
Whatever. We got our man.
We got a man. As a man of the right man, we got a man.
I will say that game does do a thing that I love in games with the way it divides itself up amongst its chapters by doing that with departments. Because I think you go into, like we mentioned, homicide, and then I think at one point you're also in the narcotics department, and then you do arson and stuff like that.
Are you working your way down? Like homicide's the first?
You work your way up.
Okay.
You screw up or something, you do something they don't like, and then you get like you go down, and you have to start working your way back up, and that's when the game. And it's kind of like it goes over the course of his life, and his life don't go too good if I remember correctly.
That's a metaphor for the game itself, I think. Starts off like great, and then you're just like, yeah, fuck you, buddy.
I want to record an episode about LA Noire now, but
I love
are we allowed to spoil it? Because there are some wild things that happened in that game.
Can we? Because I want to hear them for sure.
It won't be.
I never finished it. I don't think.
Might have.
You have to tune into the LA Noire exclusive. So, yeah.
I have one comment I want to read here. She listed a bunch of games. We can pick what we want to choose next. From Roberta Vaughn, she said Skyrim, LA Noire, Portal 2, Batman: Arkham City, Dark Souls, Dead Space 2, Dragon Age 2, Star Wars KOTOR. KOTOR didn't come out this year, did it? Or was it the online
KOTOR
one?
did. It was the online, the Old Republic, which I've never played, but I'm fascinated by.
Alice Madness Return, Gemini Rue, and Magica. Good year.
Magica.
That's a mix right there.
Magica
was. I remember Magica. Yeah,
it was kind of weird. I mean, I only played it for a few days. It's an overhead magic. Not Magic the Gathering, but it's a little like wizard game. You walk around, you shoot things, kind of like action RPG, Diablo like. But you had to put in like button. Yeah. You had to put in button combinations for each of your spells, and it got a little too complex for me, so I dropped off of it. Magic 1 and Magica 2, and then they made something else that people really liked. Helldivers, was that what it was?
Helldivers is great.
Yeah, that's the same studio. I can, you know what? Like looking at those two kind of side by side, that makes sense. They do share a DNA.
Never heard of
good games though. Yeah. It's good. It's okay. I mean, we got better games here to discuss. But
so a few people had mentioned Alice. Have you guys? Have either of you played, or either three of you played Alice Madness Returns?
Mm-mm.
Negative.
I have not. It's on my list of things that I would like to return to at some point, because it does seem like it has a little bit of, I wouldn't say like a cult following, but there are definitely those people that feel like that is a game that deserves more credit, and that's always made me want to check it out. And I never have. It's one of those that has stayed on the back burner.
Yeah, it is on Games Pass, I believe, so it might be a good opportunity to try it.
We did the first one on the show a long time ago, and I have been meaning to play Madness Returns because I just want to. I mean, it's supposed to be a really good game, and I just have never got around to it yet. I've been meaning to put it on the show, but here I got one from Ryan Carlo. Alice Madness Returns was such a long, bloated game, but I loved every bit of it. Long and bloated do not make me want to play a game, but just gonna say it. Short makes me want to play a game.
I think even if it's long and bloated, it's one of those that I would be willing to download and jump in and maybe just play a few hours and kind of get the feel for what it is that people kind of latch on to about it. And then if I'm not feeling it after that, you know what? I'd be like, okay, I understand why some people are willing to stick it through, but if it's not for me.
What's the best like long and bloated game, and why is it Dragon Quest 11?
I never played it.
That's a game that literally has put me to sleep every time I played it.
It's a fantastic game that is like 5 fucking times longer than it needs to be.
Yes. I will absolutely agree with that.
Here's one from Nick Flynn McKay. Mario 3D Land, Metal Gear Solid HD Collection, Pilot Wings Resort, Bastion, and Uncharted 3. Metal Gear Solid HD came out in 2011?
Yeah, that was when I guess 2 and 3 is when they had transferring.
Yeah, that dumb
your
thing.
file. Although I would have thought that was a Vita thing. So and Vita's not till December of this year in Japan, and then next year. But I guess you could do it with your PSP. Maybe was there a PSP port of 2 and 3 also?
I can't remember.
Don't know.
So was anyone? I played Mario 3D Land, but I played Mario 3D World first.
Oh.
So I was ruined because I played the best Mario game ever made. So when I went to 3D Land, I didn't enjoy it as much. I was so excited to play it, but I didn't have as much fun with it.
I've never played a single 3DS game. Not a single one.
So 3D Land is great. I think World is much better, but 3D Land is great.
It is good. It is a good game.
We brushed over here. This is the 3DS launch, but let's talk about 3D Land first. Mario 3D Land it's the Crash Bandicoot-ification of Mario, where it's basically like it's 2D, but you can kind of walk up and down a little bit. But it's a great little platformer. It's much more focused on trying to get to a goal, but still being in a 3D environment like 3D World. I loved this game. It's super easy and super fast for 8 worlds. And then after you beat the first 8 worlds, then it switches to 8 hard worlds that kind of reuse some of the maps and the challenges. But it's a fantastic little platformer. If you liked 3D World is just better all around, but if you hadn't played 3D World as I hadn't, Land is great. And I have a weird memory with it because when my wife went into labor, she had to be induced, and induction takes a long, long time.
Yes,
so we're just playing in the hospital, just playing video games the whole time. And I played 3D Land for like several hours while my wife was in labor. I think she was playing Candy Crush and some other games. I don't know when Candy Crush came out. That might be a 2011 game. Probably the biggest game of this year, if that's the case.
It would be, yes.
But 3D Land is just, I have like a lot of fond memories. It's just a nice, solid Mario platformer in a way that like Sunshine kind of gets like lost. You know, it's just too long and bloated. And 3D Land is just quick and to the point.
It was just nice that it was something that felt a little bit different whenever it came to Mario. I mean, they had been doing or maybe New Super Mario Bros. Was after. I think it was before though, right?
New Super Mario Bros. With DS.
That's right. So yeah. So like they had been doing the kind of like getting back to basics with the 2D side-scrolling platforming and stuff like that. And then this was just enough of a shakeup to be really solid on the 3DS. I mean, you have the Tanuki suit returning, which that alone should get people in there to play it. It's just a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm glad to hear I'm not the one that, other people like this game. I'm glad I'm the minority.
This was made in the rush though of all hands on deck to save 3DS rush. I don't think this game should have come out in 2011. I don't think it was planned to. It was definitely rushed because the 3DS came out in March of 2011 for $250. It's $50 less than the Switch right now. $100 less than the Switch OLED that comes out in a week or two. Or maybe be out by that point. But whatever. So yeah, it was a $250 system and it didn't do as well. And the thing is Nintendo's backbone has always been its handhelds, regardless of how well its consoles are doing or not doing well, like GameCube era, Nintendo 64, like the Game Boy Advance, DS always propped up Nintendo. And the 3DS hit like a lead balloon. I didn't even get one. I was a huge Nintendo fanboy, still am. I didn't get one for another year and a half. So they basically, all hands on deck, we need to fix the 3DS. They slashed the price within like 3 or 4 months from $250 to $180, I think. And then they started rushing out like the big guns because Mario Kart 7 and 3D Land both were rushed to meet holiday 2011 to save the 3DS. And it did.
I didn't buy one until way later when a guy I worked with sold me one for cheap with a bunch of Pokemon games. So that's all
I will say, as much fun as that game was, my like formative experience with the 3DS that year was Ocarina of Time coming out on 3DS. That was a big hole in my like gaming history. I'd never played it, and that 3DS port is just incredibly solid. It's such a good game that lends to being able to have your 3DS like in your backpack or in your pocket, playing it on the go, and that, as many people will tell you, the game is very good.
If the 3DS is in your back pocket, must be a giant back pocket though.
Oh yeah, dude!
I got
you got the bag.
Transporting him back to 1998.
Look, Cargo shorts were made for the 3DS. You just got
Don't
have
wear
all those
mine right
pockets
now.
and you fill them up
A
with.
symbiotic relationship.
What were the 3DS launch games in 2011?
Terrible. It was Paddling's Resort, Steel Diver.
Oh, is that the
It had, like,
submarine game?
Yes.
It had to be fair, it had a lot of games, just not a lot of good games.
Yikes.
It had Super Street Fighter 4 3D, which is a competent port. There's a Splinter Cell, is Splinter Cell Ghost Ops? Ghost Recon, Tom Clancy something. That's like Advanced Wars, but with Ghost Recon that's supposed to be pretty good. And then just a whole lot of blah.
Had one person put that on here as one of their favorite games.
Yeah, it's supposed to be really good. I bought it for dirt cheap and I've never touched it. And it also, I think, launched alongside Pokemon Black and White 1, which were original DS games that could be played also on the 3DS, no enhancements. So the biggest 3DS game was probably a DS game.
Yeah. Oh, just to read, since you brought it up, from Peter Vusimilo said, I have an unusual pick, but really enjoyed Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Shadow Wars on the 3DS. It's by the same gang that made the XCOM series. And basically, it's Tom Clancy cross a light XCOM clone. Okay, my one comment I had about that game, so I wanted to get it out there.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Just that brief description. I mean, that kind of
I bought it for like $5 at one point. It looks good.
But and then it didn't launch with the eShop. The eShop came out, I think, during the week of E3 that year, which then had I believe it launched with Link's Awakening and Donkey Kong 94, the best game of all time. And Ocarina of Time may have come out right around that same time in June 2011.
Yep, Ocarina of Time was around June.
Yeah. And then my big Nintendo 64 port, Star Fox 64 3D. That one's just so good. I love Star Fox 64. I can play the whole thing in an hour, get my fill, and then come back to it next year. It's like a Christmas movie. I love it.
And coming to Switch online too soon.
I know, right? It's funny that 3D port has the exact same lines and actors as the Nintendo 64 game, but they re-recorded the lines. I don't know why they invested the money in it, but it's all new recordings of the same lines from the same actors.
That seems
true remaster.
Oh, and that game also has local video chat in it. You can play local multiplayer with the camera and look at your friends in real life and on your screen with cameras. It's really dope. Not online, locally.
Fantastic.
Okay.
Peak Nintendo, just really going for it.
Yeah, throwing it at the wall, see what sticks, man.
All right, let's see here. Here's one from Pamela D. Dwajak. Sorry, I butchered your name if you listen to this. She has a YouTube channel, I know that. Bastion, a great action game with some of the most beautiful art and music.
Glad we get to talk this one.
Oh, of course. I played Bastion once. I think I just randomly picked it up on 3. It was an Xbox Live Arcade game, so that would have been going on around this time too.
Definitely the heyday.
Oh, Bastion was a really good game. I remember really enjoying it. It was made by Supergiant, who ended up making Hades, which
the first game by Supergiant.
Yeah,
their debut, and what a freaking debut!
Yep.
Oh, that's so
good.
It's an action RPG where the narrator is telling you what you're doing. Oh, he hit it. He hit this, or he's it's really fun.
It doesn't have the gravitas of the Bastion announcer, just to be clear.
That guy also does I remember he would record wedding announcements, and I tried to get my wife on board, but she didn't know Bastion, so I didn't really
Logan Cunningham.
He'd be like, and these two lovebirds, they found each other.
I love it.
Year 2009, and now they love each other. And they're tying one together. They're gonna have a child together. It's gonna be a good time with a little twangy music behind it. He'll do that, and I'm like, oh shit, I wanted this, and she's like, I don't know what this is. I don't care.
I love Giant Spider, one of my favorite videos.
Have you played this game since you played Hades? Because it's a little different going back after you played Hades, because it's a similar combat style, similar fun, different weird weapons. But after playing Hades, I'm like, I don't really want to play Bastion.
Well, it's 2011. So that makes sense.
Because they made it's just good. They made Transistor and Fire.
Which I did an episode about
Fire.
Transistor, Fire, and Hades. Yeah, I'd put Bastion at number 3 personally on the list.
So good. I love
it. Is the story is fantastic. The music is so good. The way it incorporates just not only like traversing through the level and like the background music being good, but the characters you meet have like their own individual themes, kind of like bringing it back to like that Final Fantasy era of like really having music have a big role. But they sing like that. You'll actually hear the characters singing their songs. And it's such a weird thing that I wasn't expecting whenever I play through that game, but they use it in really effective ways. And it's it's insane to me to look back and think that like this was their debut. Like this is how they started, and you can see the influences in Bastion and how that kind of helped them grow with Transistor and then Pyre and then even Hades.
That's what I love so much about Bastion is you can really see how the studio takes like a few core concepts, amazing sound design, amazing art, and typically what I like about them most, and you can see this in Transistor, Pyre, Hades, they give you a bunch of tools and then like, look, combine these in as many cool and interesting ways as possible and go do your job. And like they're just so good at what they do. It's astounding to me.
Yeah,
this soundtrack's good. I listened to this at work. It's a really good soundtrack.
And here's one from Roger Weimer. How am I supposed to remember anything I played then? Hey, you're supposed to look up a list like we didn't figure out.
Fair enough, yeah.
Here's one that I can't really comment on. Maybe you guys can. From Wesley Kennedy, Terraria.
Terraria, yeah, absolutely.
Side-scrolling Minecraft, yeah.
I played it once. I couldn't get into it. I just got confused, and that was the end of it. I know my old co-host Mike, he was a big fan of that when I remember him talking about that a lot.
It's not a game that's going to hold your hand. Certainly, I mean, there's layers upon layers to it. It can be pretty tough to penetrate for just a casual player for sure.
Right.
Yeah. I had a friend that like he played like hundreds of hours of Terraria on his PC, and I'm like, oh, wow, okay. He also loved FTL, which I don't think is this year, but I remember he loved Terraria and FTL, and I got it when I got it in my Vita, and I was like I went with Minecraft. I'm like, okay, I don't get this.
You got to be the right
people
kind.
Love this, and
you got to be the right kind of person.
Yeah.
We should also point out this 2011 was the official release of Minecraft. You know, it had been out before, obviously, but the official release of it.
Yep, that was a big thing for me.
Yeah.
Never played Minecraft.
What?
I never have. I bought a copy of it for 360.
With my son, and my son was like, "Help me fix this. Help me do this." And I looked at him like, "I don't know how to craft nothing." And it's like all these different like crafting boards. I'm like, "I don't get this. You're gonna have to go on YouTube, I hear." And now he's a great Minecraft player. But I did not teach him anything. I think as old folks, just like I don't get this. It just breaks my brain.
I think what was crazy about it is like it had released that year, and that was I think iOS is what it was that got me because I was still in high school at the time. So being able to bring that experience, kind of similar with 3DS, like just having a phone in your pocket and being able to kind of pull it up on your iPhone and just jump in to Minecraft with friends was such a big deal. And it was the go-to game that I feel like most people would point to for saying, hey, mobile gaming on your phone, like this is actually something that can be done. Because I mean, Minecraft isn't a graphically complex game, but they didn't really trim anything from that mobile version. Like you could still bring friends in, you had the multiplayer, people would build, it would save your worlds. And I think it was just a big kind of showpiece for the fact that, hey, you can have a good mobile game on your phone.
Temple Run, also 2011. Call out. Shout out Temple Run.
Okay.
Top 3, Temple Run.
Top 3 Minecraft, like the 2 most important games of the year.
One.
Yeah,
keep going.
But I mean, going back to your point though, like this was the iPhone year where I started being like, holy shit, there are 3D games on the iPhone that you can control. Yep. And like with a touchscreen, like GTA 3 also came out this year on iPhone. I was just checking that. Like that's when I started being like, holy shit, these phones are powerful. And like I'm like, I don't really want to play without a controller, but people are doing it and the kids are doing it and they're doing a good job with it. And like that blew my mind more than anything with Minecraft. It was just a giant full 3D modern game on an iPhone.
Yeah, just a big proof of concept for sure that it could be done.
I think there's definitely an argument to be made that, especially for like a lot of more experienced gamers or people who like grew up with gaming before iPhones, of kind of being frustrated or thinking that like, you know, the touchscreen controls weren't the great. But like you said, I mean, you could go somewhere and just see kids playing these games on their phones. And like, if that's not a proof of concept, then I don't know what is. Like that took the world by storm. The fact that you could go over to a family friend's house or be at a school or something like that and see kids have their phones out and there they are, they're playing Minecraft or they're playing Grand Theft Auto or Temple Run. It was insane to see how the mobile landscape blew up that year.
And this one from Zach, honorable mention, Dead Island along with Rage is my top 10 favorite games of all time.
Got Dead Island on my list as well.
I have never played Dead Island. I own it. I don't
I stand up.
copies.
That is a jank of a game. I could not get into it, but I know it has its defenders.
I saw it because a friend of mine had it for 360. He brought it over, and for some reason, I don't know why, the game scared me. Like, the idea of it just terrifies me, and I have yet to ever play it. I want to.
It's not scary in practice. Like, once you start, it's a little more goofy and
no, I know. Like,
kilter. A great trailer, though. Another goat trailer.
Something about it scares me, and I can't really understand it because, like, it's not a scary game. Like, I saw that it's just, but the idea, I think, of being surrounded by zombies and are the weapons breakable too?
Oh yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
I think I don't like breakable weapons either, but I don't know. I one day I'm gonna make myself play it. It's just one of those things where for some reason it put the fear in me. I don't know why, and it's been there ever since.
It's the bugs and glitches that are the true horror of the game.
I don't think you have to play it, honestly. Like, maybe that's just because I had a bad experience with it, but it's another one of those where I think it has a strong concept and it laid the foundation for Dying Light, which is a phenomenal game. And if you're looking for that kind of experience, and that's fair. Dying Light is a scary game with its day-night cycle and how it does that. But if you're looking for that cooperative kind of open world zombie experience, I just don't see any reason why you wouldn't play Dying Light instead of going back to Dead Island, because that game was just riddled with bugs and jank.
I'm assuming a lot of them got patched out by now. I mean, this game got re-released on Xbox One and PS4.
I don't.
It was a trouble development too, so maybe not.
You know what? I'm okay with bugs and glitches. For the most part, as long as they don't break the game, I'm okay with. I mean, as long as they don't make it so I can't play the game, I'm okay with it.
Well,
I don't care if things go through walls. I don't care if enemies go floating in the air. As long as it doesn't affect me, I don't care.
I think that was a lot of the charm for some people too, though, like who got into it of, you know, being with a group of friends and you're trying to pull something off and then this goofy, janky clip just happens. And you know what? Like that's a memorable experience. It may not be working properly, but me and my friends had a good laugh.
Also with me, I love playing retro games. I mean, yes, some people are like, it's not retro. It's only 10 years ago. It's retro, damn it, people. Like, I have a weird thing where plus the 360 era, I have a lot of like where I bought so many games and I never got around to them because my son was 7, 8, 6 at the time. And I just like, I'll get to this one day. And that hasn't happened yet. But so that's part of it why I want to go back to some of these games. Plus, I just love playing older games and yeah.
You said they also mentioned... Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
They mentioned Rage. Yeah, Rage was I never played it, but I remember it being a big deal because it was the debut of id Tech 5, which was, I guess, id's next big engine, which I think the later Wolfenstein game, the first of the newish Wolfenstein games used, as well as Evil Within. I don't remember how the game played, but I remember the game engine being a big marketing point of it.
It was.
Yeah.
I really liked Rage a lot. I think that's worth a revisit for some people. I know 2 didn't sell super well, and neither did the first game for that matter. But that tech, that id 5 tech, is just really good in that game. It's so pretty. The gunplay feels really solid, and the enemy AI is unbelievable. The way that, if somebody's sprinting towards you and you shoot at them and you like pop them in the hip or the leg, like they will stumble in the direction away from you've been shooting and will like lean on walls to push back off to kind of like get back their momentum. Or sometimes they'll like swing from pipes on the ceiling and stuff like that. And it just feels really good whenever you get into that action.
How is Rage 2? Because I think that's from the Just Cause developers, which I loved Just Cause. Did you ever play that one?
I never played 2. Okay. I wanted to, but...
I think it's on Game Pass. I should just check it out.
I don't know what it was. It's one of those that I think I'll pick up whenever it's, $20, and it might already be $20. Because I think it's a similar experience as one from what I've talked to people about it, that if you stick through for that gameplay, like it's still really fun, but maybe the open world aspects or the story isn't as strong as it could be. And the same was absolutely true for the first game, but it seems like a similar experience of, hey, if you're just looking for fun combat in a first person shooter in a post-apocalypse, like by all means go in for it. Like you're going to have a fun time.
Okay. I vaguely remember playing it, maybe not 2011, because I would have got it on like a GameFly sale or something, most likely at this time. So maybe 2012, but I remember enjoying it. It's a short shooter, which I like, and it was fun. I mean, the weapon's so good from what I remember. It's a decent game. I don't think it got too much hate that it didn't deserve.
It deserves some hate. It ends on a
cliffhanger.
Absolute terrible cliffhanger. It's so bad. And it's not even God, I'm trying to think of what to compare it to. It's almost as bad, if not worse, than Halo 2. I would say it's probably worse because it doesn't even really set up exciting stuff. Like, it just ends for no reason.
Yeah. I mean, were they... And the sequel, I'm assuming, sequel didn't come out for like years and years later.
Like 5 or 6 years, yeah. I think it's 2016.
God, it's already been out that long?
No way. Rage 2 was like 2 years ago, wasn't it?
Time marches on. Let's see.
2019.
It was 2019. Yeah. Okay.
God, still man, you're gonna make me feel really. You're like, all right, here's one game I know we probably want to talk about from George Floors. Dragon Age 2. While the tactical combat from Origins shifted to become more action-oriented, the combat was frenetic and fun. The story and characters made this game quite engaging. I just beat it again this year with a guide and was happy to see that I can go through another playthrough and the character development of some companion can change it again based on my choices.
A good game just demolished by the weight of its own expectations.
Yes.
That was going to always be tough.
I beat it. I played it. I remember hating it. But I beat it and I played it and I will play it again someday for the show maybe, but I have no interest otherwise.
There was some baffling design choices in it. Like
yes.
Just reuse maps just ad nauseum. You know, it didn't have the scale of what you would expect. It did good things. It was a good game, but I don't think anyone would say it was probably a good Dragon Age game.
No, because Origins was so good and then you went in such a different way that it just didn't work, and then even Dragon Age 3 is completely different than what 2 was too.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's also living in the shadow of Mass Effect, which had like carryover between its stories. So I remember, because I think Dragon Age 2 doesn't carry over like your impacts to your stories, because no video game did. Mass Effect did. That was kind of the expectation. Like, well, this is a deep storytelling thing that like I'm going to be able to pass this story on to Dragon Age 2, and like nothing happened. I remember people being, and it just was like a scaled back story, I think.
Yeah, that's all fair, I think.
All right, and this comment I was looking for earlier, and I couldn't find it, so I want to read it now real quick. It's from something we already covered. I just want to read the comment from Henry Chan. Gotta be Witcher 2. It's a rare RPG that actually has an interesting plot and great characters. It also just gives you an entirely different second act if you go with the War Crimes elf or the War Crimes crony. Okay. Oh, and I'm curious if either of you guys, here's a comment. I'm curious if either of you guys have played this game. From Andrew Burns. To the Moon. I've never had a game that short affect me that much, and that includes Journey, which is incredible. It has essentially no gameplay, but one of my favorite stories in the history of games.
So, Lucas, this is a game that I think me and you have talked about before, if I remember right.
We have, yes.
Yes. Fantastic game. And I'm glad that we can at least touch on it.
I don't want to go in spoiler territory with it because
it's one of those that's going to be hard to talk about because so much of that is experiencing it with a clean slate.
I don't mind spoiling most games. This is one game where I'm just not okay with spoiling it on this podcast. Hence the reason why I don't know what
sweet, and everyone should go play it.
I have to say, it's not super expensive. It's almost always on sale on Steam. You don't really need a beefy PC or anything to play it. Like if you have a laptop, you can download Steam and just play it. I think it's on Switch now too.
Yeah, it's on everything.
Go play it, everyone.
If you enjoy a good story, like just do yourself a favor, and if you have a couple free hours on a weekend or something, or it's a rainy day, it's well worth the experience. It also looks like a game that could have been on Super Nintendo.
It was made in RPG Maker. That might be why.
Yes.
Which I tried to make games in RPG Maker and they blew, but this apparently was a very good RPG Maker game.
You ever play it?
No, I've never played it. I've heard good things, just never gotten around to it.
And it's funny because it's not an RPG. I mean, there's some faux mock RPG elements, but it's very much a narrative game for sure.
It's just a story. It's a very touching little story. You can beat it in under 2 hours, and it is. I played it once, and I have never went back to it yet.
I don't know anyone who will replay To the Moon, and I don't mean that as a negative.
I will for the show one day, but it will be an episode with spoilers tags warned all over it before I start it. So
I think it's one of those things that just because it is such a short experience, unlike some other narrative games where you have more time and you can go back and it's like, oh, I forgot about this plot point, or I forgot this interaction with this character. To the Moon is very concise, and its moments are like you're gonna remember them. I just don't feel the need to ever go back to it because anytime I think about it, I'm like, oh yeah, this is what I loved about that game. I remember very clearly just kind of going through it and having a great time.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know we have much to say about this one. I'm going to read this comment from Matthew Anders. Lots of heavy hitters that year, but for me, it's Battlefield 3. Getting home from school and playing Battlefield 3 with friends who lived in other states never got old. Any of you guys were big into Battlefield 3 at this time? Or ever?
No.
I was on the Modern Warfare 3 camp at the time. Because that was the same year.
Yep.
Yeah, that might be the best-selling game of the year, Modern Warfare 3. I wasn't sure. I never played it. It was after
that or Skyrim, I would think would have to be one.
I mean, Minecraft probably ultimately is. I don't know if in 2011 it was.
True. Good point.
But yeah, I mean, Modern Warfare 3 was big because it was, and this was big because it was like after the shakeup that happened when the Modern Warfare creators left EA or what is it, Activision? Yeah, they left it to go form the Titanfall developer. And so Modern Warfare 3 was the first one without them. Modern Warfare was, and I remember it was huge. And I remember like Battlefield was like touted as the EA's competitor to Modern Warfare, but I never played either of them. And I don't even know if they're similar.
Modern Warfare 3 is a weird one because it's the end of that trilogy, like the Captain Price and Soap trilogy.
Okay.
And it goes for some, I don't know, it makes some weird choices in that campaign. And I know a lot of people don't play, especially nowadays, like Call of Duty for the campaign. But back then, I mean, Modern Warfare and Modern Warfare 2 were both great campaign experiences, in my opinion. Yes. And I think 3 is the first one where that started to take a slide, because I think Black Ops came out in between 2 and 3. I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure at that point Black Ops was already in the rotation.
Black Ops was out in 2011.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because it was Modern Warfare 1, then World at War, Modern Warfare 2, Black Ops 1. Then
okay. Yeah. Right. And you can just I don't know, you can start to see the campaign start to slide. They make some weird decisions and story beats. They really try to go to replicate like the no Russian scene in Modern Warfare 2. Like there's a big shocking kind of terrorist attack in Modern Warfare 3 that does not hit super well, in my opinion. It's really just not done well. But it's a fun game. I mean, like I played a lot of Call of Duty, so that multiplayer is always fun. That was a big game for me in 2011.
It had a horde mode, like offshoot.
That was not great. I did not like the horde mode.
Yeah,
I pulled a list of the top 10 selling games in 2011. So I'm just going to go through them real quick. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3, Just Dance 3, Skyrim, Battlefield 3, Madden 12, Call of Duty Black Ops, which came out in 2010, Batman Arkham City, Gears of War 3, Just Dance 2, and Assassin's Creed Revelation.
Interesting.
Can we take a moment to talk about Just Dance?
Sure. You guys it's all you. Just Dance? Get the floor.
I just want to make sure, has anybody else played Just Dance, or is that only me?
I've been at parties where it's been played, but I have not played it myself.
I think that's what makes it stand out to me. It's weird how the Wii kind of ushered in this era of kind of bringing families back around to playing games together. Obviously, like Wii Sports was huge, but the only other game that really did that same thing on the Wii, or at least in my like family and friend circles, was Just Dance. And it's weird to think back to like Christmases or Thanksgivings and stuff like that. I'm part of a big family of, 20, 25 people all getting together to have some fun. And then it's like, hey, plug up the Wii, like we'll play Just Dance and laugh at people looking absolutely stupid while trying to follow along to these dance moves. And I think a lot of people connected with that because those games sold just bonkers units whenever they come out.
Yeah, there's 2 of them in this year's top 10.
Yeah,
that's insane.
This is off topic, but I want to put this on the radio. So just now, where you were talking, my cat decided that she had to lean over the desk, grab my Darth Maul little infinity figure, and throw him off the desk, and then run away.
Rude.
My cat is thankfully taking a nap and not
just like Obi-Wan Kenobi. That's how you kill Darth Maul.
Got the high ground.
I stopped her earlier in the recording, and then she came back, and I wasn't paying attention because I was doing other stuff. And all of a sudden, I noticed she went and grabbed that one that she tried to get earlier, threw him off the table, and ran away after she committed the murder. What, you little shit.
So, Mike, I've got one for you. It's actually not a game I've played, but I suspect you have, and I want to hear your thoughts on it because I like the series. The Third Birthday, the Parasite Eve game.
That came out in 2011?
This is what my research shows, unless I'm wrong here.
I did an episode on that game. That game is...
I love Parasite Eve 1 and 2, but I never got around to playing this one.
It's okay. I mean, it's not it's completely something different. If you're playing this on PSP or even playing this on a computer with PSP, it's okay. I mean, it's not that long. It's a third-person shooter. I didn't hate it. It doesn't really add. The story makes absolutely no fucking sense. I mean, I'm gonna spoil it, but it doesn't matter. Is you're not Aya, even though you're playing as Aya. You're not actually Aya. You're Maya that went into Aya's body when Aya got shot to save Aya.
Have either of you guys played any of the Parasite Eve? Or just
I've not.
No.
So
Okay.
that's the story of the game, is that, and you don't know it. And I got so angry at the beginning of the game. They're like, "Oh, this rookie." I'm like, "Rookie, she fucking saved the world twice, you assholes!" But they know that it's not Aya that's in Aya's body. Oh, it's okay. I mean, the gameplay, you jump from person to person, and it's worth one playthrough if you like playing random ass games, but it's not good.
This is a good time to. This is the year I got my PSP, though. I did not get third birthday, but I did get Tactics Ogre. Let Us Cling Together because I love the Ogre Battle and Tactics games. Game. Yeah, I mean, I bought a PSP for an Ogre game. Like, that's just what I had to do. And that was a cool one because it allowed you to do rewind features to rewind, because it's a tactical game. It's like Fire Emblem, Final Fantasy Tactics, what have you. And it allowed you to rewind, but it allowed you to rewind rewind specifically to this move 10 moves ago. Because
cool.
like that. Yeah, it was
it's a good game.
It's a really good. It's on Vita also.
Is it a remake?
Yeah, it's a remake of Tactics Ogre for Super Nintendo and PS1.
Okay. That's the same game on PS1 and Super Nintendo?
Yeah, well, there's Ogre Battle, and then there's Tactics Ogre.
Okay.
Which is Ogre Battle is like Ogre Battle 64, which I don't even know how to describe. It's not an RTS. It's not a tactical game. And then Tactics Ogre's like, it's weird. It's like in real time, but it's weird. It's great, though. Then Tactics Ogre is like, I think it even predates Final Fantasy Tactics. Maybe the same team. Yeah, yes. And it had like super long loading times on PS1. I think it may have used the memory card for something, and so I had to read the memory card, so it's super slow. But the PSP game is great. It's got a subtitle like all Ogre games do, of a Queen song. So Let Us Cling Together, March of the Black Queen. It's really dumb. I don't know who did this, but they did. I bought my PSP for Tactics Ogre, Let Us Cling Together. It's such a great game. And it's available on Vita, and I'm sure, Mike, if you're willing to acquire PSP games on the computer, you can find it there too.
You know,
Vita 2011? That a year after?
Japan 2011. Vita was announced in 2011.
Okay.
And it was also announced for the same price as the 3DS at $250. It was substantially more powerful. And it's also when the BioShock PS Vita game was announced that never came to fruition. But I remember Ken Levine being on E3 stage, pulling out a Vita out of his pocket and saying, "We're going to do BioShock for this thing."
Oof.
Happened.
Should have used the cargo shorts.
That power of the cargo shorts?
I bought a PS Vita. I bought it for my girlfriend at the time, and then we broke up.
I bought my PS Vita for a port of a game that did come out in 2011, which is Mortal Kombat 9.
We actually had a lot of comments about that game.
I'm happy because it's so good.
I didn't play it in 2011.
It's so good.
It's good.
I don't know if you guys remember, it came out the same day as Portal 2, and that was huge head-to-head.
Well, there's a better game there, but
I
waiting on that one on purpose.
Very vividly remember being in GameStop and just staring at the wall and being like, I only have $60. Is it going to be Portal 2 or is it going to be Mortal Kombat 9? And I had to make
what's
that decision.
Everyone's choice? Let's make that call right now.
Portal 2.
Yeah, I bought Portal 2. Yeah,
I did too.
Wait 3 months and both games will be $20. But no, it's Portal 2, absolutely. But Mortal Kombat 9 is just it's a weird kind of pseudo reboot for the series. It doesn't have 9 in the title. And frankly, I'm a bigger Mortal Kombat fan of like the original trilogy. Once it got to like 4 and once like characters like Chinook show up, I'm just out.
Mocap.
Like, my brain just,
not a big mocap fan.
No, I like my digitized characters, but I also like my classic, like I like Shao Kahn and I like Sub-Zero and just like everybody I know. And so this one reset to Mortal Kombat 1. Like it started with that tournament. Like I don't even know if it was time travel or what it was, but it focused on like Johnny Cage. They had this in their other games before because this is definitely in Mortal Kombat versus DC. But it like you play as a character for 4 battles, and then it forces you to play as another character for 4 battles, and like through like this long story. It's like a 12-hour movie. And then, a bit of fights. And it was so fun to like learn like, oh, this is how Johnny Cage plays against fast characters. Johnny Cage plays against slow but big characters. And so I got like to be really good. And I was like forced to play like, oh, you're going to play as Raiden. And so I had learned all the different characters. It was just like a really, really solid fighting game. Because I was like overwhelmed by Street Fighter at this time. And and all the other games,
Well,
King of Fighters.
They didn't have stories either. Like, one thing about Mortal Kombat 9 is it had a story, and that's what grabbed me to the games. I played it on PS3 sometime way later. I picked it up for dirt cheap after 10 was already out, and I loved it from what I remember.
Yeah, it was so revelatory. It's a little rough now after playing 10 and 11 and the Injustice games, but at the time, it was a lot of fun.
It's because it makes you do a couple tag team fights where you just have one person that's 2 against 1. Those are a bitch, if I remember correctly.
Shao Kahn fucking cheats.
Oh, yeah.
That's Shao Kahn. They took Mortal Kombat 2 Shao Kahn and said, how can we put this in New Day? Like, there's
infamously hard.
There's a trick to beating him. I had to look it up, and there was something that you do a certain thing, you will beat him without too much trouble. If you try to fight him like normal, you'll get your ass handed.
Yeah, the trick is it lets you lower the difficulty at any point during the game. And after 2 hours of getting mad, I played the whole game. I played the whole game on hard mode. I was cruising through it, and then I hit Shao Kahn. I spent 2 hours on that dude.
Pro tip: to beat Shao Kahn, just put it on easy.
There's still a trick.
Pro gamer move.
From Christian Young, probably Mortal Kombat 9. I had just graduated high school the year prior and had the free time to really sink into that game. It was also the first online fighting game I really played. Somebody mentioned it, so I'm like, I should probably bring it up.
It's another one of those, like, kind of like we talked about with Bastion, of just like setting the foundation for so much to come. Like, having that story mode be in there the way it was and how that influenced, Mortal Kombat X and Mortal Kombat 11. They introduced the X-ray mechanic and stuff like that. And then they just had, I think the reason 9 is probably my favorite of the 3 whenever it comes to 9, 10, 11, solely because it has the perfect fighting roster. And that's the only thing to me that has always been missing from 10 and 11. Not that they're bad or that they have bad rosters, but going back to those core cast members from Mortal Kombat 1 through 3 and having them all with these updated graphics and putting them in the story, it's just such a love letter to fans of that series. Like, it's so great.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that.
Unfortunately, it has like licensed characters for the DLC, so they can't re-release it easily.
Was this the horror guys?
Yeah.
Is it Freddy Krueger in it? I think that's the one with Freddy Krueger.
It seems like there's always the theme. So there was one year where it was like, all the horror guys. But I feel like
the one with Kratos too?
Yeah,
he was like PS3 exclusive.
Yeah, that could be it. But it makes it difficult because, like, you can't buy Mortal Kombat 9 for backwards compatibility on the Xbox or the way you can, 10 and 11. That's kind of disappointing for me. But I'd love a Mortal Kombat new trilogy with all 3 of these games. Even though I played them.
Oh, that'd be great.
So while we're talking fighting games, Marvel vs. Capcom 3 was this year as well.
Yeah.
I figured that there may be some hot takes here.
I never played it.
I love it.
Own it.
Unironic. Mike's like, I own it 6 times. I haven't played it yet.
I might own multiple copies of it, yes. But I just, at this time, I bought, like, I was big into achievements. So at this time, I bought every game off Gamefly almost. That was like $10. So I ended up with so many random crap that I have just never gotten to yet.
I was deep in Gamefly during this era. Not buying, I've just ripped. But
I won't go into game. I don't go to their website. Don't look at their sales anymore. I'm like, nope, we're not going down that road again. Nope.
Too many games for your mom to find. So. But I got Mortal Kombat or Marvel vs. Capcom 3 or the Ultimate version, whatever, for the Vita because I'm like, I played Mortal Kombat 9. I'm like, I'm back into fighting games. I'm really good at these things. So I bought it. I'm like, wait a goddamn minute. I do love the art style though for Marvel vs. Capcom 3 though.
And it does have I think, a legit good roster.
Solid roster, solid art style. Like everything of it just the way that like Hawkeye is drawn just looks cool to me in a way that it never has before. And so Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite just kind of like lost that cool art style. That was my bigger disappointment.
Oh, that game just from what I've heard.
The legacy of MVC3 made Hawkeye look cool. I like it.
But Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, the one brilliant thing I'll say about it is they merged AIM from Marvel Universe with Umbrella to make them AIMbrella. And I'm like, yes, that's it.
All right, and I think since we brought it up earlier, I think we should talk about a certain game. So for those of you helping us test the repulsion gel today, just follow the blue line on the floor. Those of you who volunteer to be injected with praying DNA, I got some good news and some bad news. Bad news is we're postponing those tests indefinitely. Good news, we got a much better test for you. Fighting an army of Mantis Men. Pick up a rifle and follow the yellow line. You'll know when the test starts. That was my J.K. Simmons voice.
So
when Life Hands You Lemons say, get rid of these goddamn lemons.
All right, so everyone has played it, obviously. Did everyone also play the co-op campaign, which in itself was fantastic?
I did. Yes.
I'm actually looking for a volunteer to play that with me for an episode. So
you got to have somebody in sync with you. Like it's a tough ordeal.
It is, and you want someone who's not played it before. That's the beauty. So
okay,
maybe the tough part. I point, but. Yeah, 2 games in one, really. 2 fantastic games in one for Portal 2.
Absolutely. I'll liken Portal 2 to my best day ever of my life. I graduated my master's program that morning. Like, I know you were talking about being in law school. So like suddenly the point where when you're out of your schooling and you're like, oh shit, it's video game time. So I got out of my, I bought a lot of games in 2011. But I graduated my master's in the morning. They went to Free Comic Book Day, saw Thor 1, and then my wife invited my best friend who had moved away. For a surprise, he came over and we just played Portal 2 co-op all day for my birthday. It was also my birthday. It was a great day. We just played Portal 2 all day after seeing Free Comic Book Day, getting out of master's degree. It was just a great day, and I don't know if I could ever top that high. So I'm never going to go back to Portal 2 because that was just too perfect of a moment.
This is actually great because 2011 was my last year of college. We're having a house party, and Portal 2 comes out, so I'm just like, fuck this party. I'm going to play Portal 2 over here.
Right.
A few people come over, and a buddy of mine brings 2 girls. One of them walks over to me and was like, oh, you're playing Portal 2. That girl is now my wife. So I met her. Or my fiance. We're getting married next year.
Portal 2 is a nexus point of which all things can be changed. Yeah. But that doesn't exist. Yes. I'm on board. Love it.
Portal 2 is just, that's good stuff there.
I had somehow never played Portal 2 until this year, and I wasn't spoiled on it at all. I had no idea what was coming. I had no idea about Wheatley. None of that. And I went into that game okay, I guess I'll play this. And I'm like, I fucking loved Portal 2. There's an episode about it in the show where I had Greg Stewart from Player One podcast join us. And man, that game is fucking good.
So good.
I couldn't. So my favorite quote from that game is "Space. I'm in space." I love that.
I'm waiting for my Steam Deck to come in so I can play it again, handheld.
I've been thinking about replaying it this year. It's been on my mind a lot recently because it is definitely in my top 10 games of all time. And like I was saying, whenever I went to buy it, I had not played the first Portal. Game Informer had done a cover story on Portal 2, and I had read through it, and I was like, this sounds really interesting. I'd never really been super into puzzle games, but there was something about just the idea of being able to go through a portal. Again, as someone who had no experience with the first game, I was like, that sounds really cool. And then going in, I played it all through a weekend and just sitting through and hitting those story beats unsurprised, not knowing that it was supposed to be a humorous game. One of the funniest games of all time.
Absolutely.
Just absolutely. And the jokes they keep flying and they're always hitting, and the twists and turns are super good. The puzzles actually get harder, and there would be times that I was stumped, but never to the point of, super frustration. I would eventually figure it out, and it would just be that kind of eureka moment of why the hell was I not looking at this wall the whole time? Why didn't I think of putting a portal up there? And it's so good. I can't recommend it enough.
I don't know how spicy this is, but I think Portal 2 is the funniest game ever made.
That's fair.
It's pretty damn funny.
It's up there. It's got to be. I mean, you guys were talking about Cave Johnson, but Wheatley has some great jokes. GLaDOS she has some great potato jokes, which is one of my favorite moments of the game.
How much she hates the protagonist.
It's so good.
It's so good. The first Portal game unveils, and the first Portal game is substantially different, and Portal 2 is it's just so good, and it's all dilapidated, and you're going into the past of Aperture. Its storytelling is really good. It's just a fun it's also just a really great puzzle platformer, and just I know I need to get up there. And one of the games that I really love that we it's not this year, is Link Between Worlds for 3DS is similar thing. All the Zelda puzzles are how do I get to that ledge? And that's my entire goal of this game, is just a traversal puzzles. And that's what I really love about Portal. It's just, how do I get up there?
And
you know what you need to do. You just got to put together how to do it.
I got a few comments for Portal 2 I want to read real quick before we finish up Portal 2. From Leslie Markley. Portal 2 for sure, and I mean, how do I describe why? It's my example of a perfect game experience from a narrative, gameplay, music, character point. Not wrong. And I know there's more. No, I can't. From Rick Highberry. Portal 2, the overall game design, the writing, the humor, the music, it was a good link, but not overly long, and every single moment was fun and enjoyable.
Yeah, it's all fair.
And from Matt Williams, Portal 2, didn't even have to think about it for more than a second. Mike O'Brien Norris, Portal 2, easy. So yeah.
I think there's something to be said about that game design, just in the way that it's strange because they don't hold your hand and they never really give you, like, there's never pop-up text or anything like that, or telling you like, hey, here's the tutorial for blue goo. This is how it works, like blah, blah, blah. Like, it's all done so naturally of just you going into a room, everything that you need to see is in front of you, figure it out. Like, go, like, mess around. You see that paint on the floor, like, go step on it, see what it does. And the way that it does that while also increasing the difficulty of the puzzles just blows my mind that they were able to go from that first chamber to how complex the game gets later without ever having to stop you and be like, hey, this is what you're supposed to do. This is how this works, blah, blah. It is all done so naturally and so well.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Did any of y'all ever play the kind of pseudo-sequel Quantum Conundrum?
No.
I have not.
No.
The Kim Swift, who was one of the lead designers, I think, on Portal 2, left to found Airtight Games, and it's a very similar traversal puzzles game. It's all like physics based. It's got doesn't have portal guns, but it's a first person shooter where you have like different like weighting systems. Like you can make things light or heavy. You put them on buttons and stuff. If you can find it for cheap for PC, it's a pretty darn cool Portal like.
It's in my library.
It's not Portal 2. I'll give you that. But like bounce around with it. I mean, they don't make many games like this. I think Cube with a Q looked similar to this, or at least tried to market itself this way, and it was on a Steam sale, so I own it. And I was like, this is not the same. But there's no follow-up on this type of game other than Quantum Conundrum and Cube, as far as I know, if you're looking for something Portal-like. So it's been 10 years.
Here's a comment from John Jelinek. Either Skyrim or Catherine. I definitely played more Skyrim, but Catherine was so fun and unique. Did any of you guys play Catherine back then?
Is Catherine 2011? I don't have it on my list.
It's on 2011.
Yeah, I saw it there.
Okay. I've not played it, though, so.
It's weird as hell. I liked it. It's a puzzle action game, but I couldn't stick with it. I had a really hard time playing it, and I fell off it, and I've always been meaning to replay it. That hasn't happened yet, but it's very cool. Like, I love the anime cutscenes. I like the fact that you're in a bar and you're a guy making bad decisions. Well, he cheated on his fiance, and he's having all the guilt of it, and I'm pretty sure the girl he cheated on is a demon, but it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's Catherine with a K. He cheats on her with Catherine with a C. And I want to say the Switch version adds a Catherine with a Y at the end. Or something. Yes. And the main character's name is Vincent. And there's a classic run, and my name's also Vincent. There's a classic run of just fictional characters who are just shitty human beings with my name. Like Vince from the Fast and Furious movies. And I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, and I was like engaged at this time. And I'm like, God damn it. Like, I don't need to play this game about this Vincent guy who's going to cheat on his fiance. This is, I don't even see my wife.
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
I don't even see my fiance watching me play this game. Like, it's really fun. It's in the Shin Megami Tensei universe.
It is?
But no. Yeah, it's Shin Megami Tensei adjacent, is my understanding.
Oh, interesting.
Like the way Persona is. And this was actually, I think, Atlas's first HD game. Because Persona 4 is PS2, right? And Persona 5 would have been after this. So I think maybe have been their first HD game.
And one other comment from Adam Kessel, 100% Catherine. So I had a couple people that really like Catherine. It didn't stick with me.
There's something about I haven't played it, and it's because every time I go to look at, gameplay trailers or stuff like that, the like bot gameplay
tedious
just does not look fun or interesting to me enough to stick with it to see that story personally.
Right. If it was just a dude making bad decisions like visual novel, I'd be more interested.
I can relate to that.
Yeah, it's a weird ass game. Like, who would have thought you had a game running around your boxers with a pillow? I
want to also say that I did not. I was speaking off the dome, but then I read on the Wikipedia article basically exactly what I said. So somehow I retained this information despite never researching Wikipedia. That's impressive.
Oh, and earlier, what couple games I want to? I'm just looking at the record of some of the stuff came out. Alien Infestation for DS came out in 2020.
Yeah, that's a fun one.
We did an episode on it. You can hear all about that if you want to. Dead Rising 2 off the record. I'm just looking at a bunch of the random stuff that came out.
Radiant Historia, kind of a deep cut here.
Oh,
yeah.
Nice.
Thank you. I forgot that is a really good game for DS.
It is a really good DS RPG.
I played on tablet at work at one point in an old job, and man, that was a good game.
And we've only touched 3 of my top 10, so we've still got some like hardcore heavy hitters here.
I think the only other, I don't want to say like underrated game because it has a lot of love, but we haven't touched on it yet, is Deus Ex Human Revolution, which
that was 2011.
Is a very good game.
Huh. Yeah, I don't have it on my list either. I played it and it just didn't make a mark on me. And I know a lot of people really like it. For whatever reason, didn't do it for me.
I just bought it on a Fanatical sale yesterday.
Really?
On Steam, yeah. I mean, I bought it before other stuff, but not on Steam. So
yeah. So what about Deus Ex? I guess 3. What do you like about it?
The gameplay is really what does it for me. It was the first kind of experience, and it reminds me a little bit of the Wolfenstein reboot, of kind of giving you these kind of open spaces to either, hey, do you want to do this stealth and go through, like you can upgrade your mechanics to kind of support that play style, or if you want to go in guns blazing, like the game also gives you the opportunity to do that. And that was at least my first experience with a game that kind of gave you that freedom, even if it's not as expansive as that has grown over the past few years in the gaming industry. But it's just a lot of fun to play. The combat is a lot of fun to me, and I like the encounters and the way that you can approach them. And then the story is also interesting. It's just a unique game that I would say holds up fairly well. I think you should play it if you haven't had the chance to.
Okay. It's been on my list for 10 years.
This is probably unfair, but I remember playing it, and you're like a cybernetically enhanced guy, right? I guess how you. So you fall off. I fell off a set of stairs, like 6 foot, and died. I'm just like, fuck this. Like, this is ridiculous. So that's probably on me more than anything.
That's fair.
Funny. No, that makes sense. So that would have pissed me off too. So
yeah, it's like the future is here, guys.
Yeah, no, if you like those kind of games, like I said, Dishonored, or even how like Wolfenstein kind of takes that approach of giving you the option of whether you want to go in stealth or action, I think that's one of the kind of earlier experimentations with that idea of giving players that kind of agency in a first-person shooter, and it works well, in my opinion, and it's a lot of fun.
And I think we should get to this because Vincent mentioned this earlier. Vince, you had some Kinect games you wanted to talk about.
Yes.
Oh, no.
Kinect year. Again, this is the year I bought way too many video games because I'm out of my master's program. And I'll only, it's a Kinect year, but Child of Eden is a game that I feel like many people don't know about, and it's kind of just glossed over on the 2011. Child of Eden is the sequel to Rez. Rez was a big Dreamcast game.
Wow.
Yeah, and I
didn't know that.
It's because Rez even like takes place talking about like Eden and stuff. But it's literally a sequel. It's Mizuguchi made. Mizuguchi also made Lumines and Tetris Effect. So they all kind of have that same like kind of vibe-ness with like the mixing. Yeah, mixing of the music. And so this is the sequel to Rez. It was for Kinect. You can also play it with the controller. I was doing it last night. But what it is you use your hands. You use one hand for one type of ammo and one hand for the other type of ammo. And basically, you're just kind of like vibing, like listening to the music. And trance-wise, you could actually just they made a vest for it that you could put your Xbox controllers with the rumble, and it would rumble to the game. And you could put your controllers in your vest or in your cargo pockets, is what I did. And you could just like have all 4 of your controllers like just like vibrating with the music and just like this trance-ness. And it was absolutely like transcendent for me, where you're going, and it's much more organic than the original Rez. So like there's this level with a whale that made me cry, where you're like just like shooting barnacles off of a whale flying in front of you, and you're doing the kind of like thing like with Rez where you lock onto the 8 things and then you swipe your hand to do your shot. And it was just like, it's absolutely like the perfect blending of like music and visual imagery. It's also done like in an hour, but it was the reason to own a Kinect for me. So
would you say that's the pinnacle Kinect experience?
Yes, I would. I would say that it's absolutely like the best Kinect experience. I think there's like workout games and stuff that like make the Kinect like actually like a viable thing, because I have like Your Shape for Kinect that like is actually like the best workout I've ever had with video games. But
what's our general feeling on the Kinect? Just like the technology behind it. It's really impressive, right?
Yeah, it's
like
super impressive. I like VR, which I've been playing Resident Infinite. I'm like, I don't know of like a long-term application for this, but it's super interesting and the technology works. And Just Dance was on Kinect also. I know my son was into the Just Dance Kinect versions because it's a little easier than having to hold on to a controller.
Bringing it back, Just Dance, the king of the crop.
And
Love
Dance Central, my wife liked a lot too.
Oh, that's right. They had their own competitive, like Dance Central was they really tried to sell that.
The Guitar Hero Rock Band makers, Harmonix. Yeah, it was all really, really good. So I love Child of Eden. And then the other game I really liked was the Gunstringer, which was it's again a shooter, just
That's
like Child
Fine, right?
No, not Double Fine. It's Twisted Pixel, the people who made Explosion Man.
Oh, okay.
And not Lollipop Chainsaw. They made some. Did they make Lollipop Chainsaw? No, they made something
that was
else.
Grasshopper, I think.
Maybe?
They made the Maw, Explosion Man, and then something else that I can't remember off the top of my head anymore. But Gunstringer, you were like a little puppet cowboy, and so you would hold your hand out like you were holding one of those puppets with the crosses that have the little strings hanging out, and you would walk around, and then you would have your hand out like a little finger guns, and you would shoot things that you would as you would go down the course, and so you had little finger guns, you go pew, 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 to shoot things, and then. The credits were the best credits I've ever seen in a game. It was like Mad Dog McCree, where every single person was like live action video of every single person who made the game, and you would shoot them with the little finger guns, and they would fall down like the little cardboard cutouts in those
it's pretty great
tableaus. It was so much fun. Again, I don't know how much you can really replicate this anymore, and it may have just been at the time, but man, it was a lot of dumb fun. So
that's something that's going to be hard. Yeah, it's gonna be hard to explain to future generations, just like the Kinect engine. You just stand there.
You hold a puppet and you have finger guns, and then you shoot the people who made the game. It's fun.
Just fucking, what are you talking about, Grandpa? It's I promise you what we did.
Oh, and as I'm just looking through the list, Need for Speed: The Run came out this year, I like that game a lot. It's not good, but I really like that game.
I did not play. The last Need for Speed I played was Hot Pursuit, which I still love to this day. And then I just kind of fell off. I think I tried to play Most Wanted and didn't really get into it, and then ended up just also skipping the run, which is a shame because I enjoy that series.
It has a story. That's why I like it. I like racing games with an actual story, but it's not. I've beaten it twice. I own it twice. It's not bad.
Oh,
Lord of the Rings: War in the North came out this year.
I've been intrigued by that one. That one looked like a really cool narrative Lord of the Rings game. Kind of forgotten in the Shadow of Mordor, but
yeah, it's actually a pretty good game. I remember playing it probably 2012, 2013.
So what's this deal? Are you the Fellowship, or
No, you're an elf, human, and a dwarf, and you have three different the styles they play, and I don't remember a whole lot about it. I just remember you're the same time of the Fellowship, but a different area. And I remember it being a decent beat 'em up or a decent hack and slash game.
Yeah, do you level up and stuff as a kind of action RPG?
It's been over 10. It's been a long time, but yeah.
I remember Kat Bailey from Axe of the Blood God and probably GamePro at the time really enjoying it.
Do you know who made that game? Did they go on to work on Shadow of Mordor, or did they just kind of get sucked up somewhere else?
I don't know, and I passed up that thing and I can't refind it now.
It looks like their last game was War in the North. They made Justice League Heroes and Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance before this.
No,
so they were definitely an action RPG studio.
I think.
It said they were merged with Monolith Productions. That's not the Monolith that makes Xenoblade, but the other Monolith.
Okay.
They did get merged exactly with the company that made Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War, so it's a perfect through line. Okay, cool.
Two monoliths seems like an oxymoron. I don't like it.
Two monoliths, both alike.
All right, here's a comment from Dave Heen. Saints Row the Third for sure. Such a hilarious and crazy game. Love it. I've never played it. Have you guys? I'm assuming you guys have.
And it's fantastic.
It's very good.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's the game where you can beat up people with a purple dildo, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it never gets old
to me.
From Joseph Story, Saints Row the Third for sure. Also, I just never got around to it. It's on my list to play someday too.
It's on Switch now.
It's just it's Grand Theft Auto dumb fun.
Yeah, that's when they made their transition. They decided to not be serious at all. And 4 is
they lean exactly. They just lean into the total nonsense of it. And it's for the better, obviously. I feel really. Saints Row the Third is
I have actually never played Skyrim ever.
I know you've bought this multiple times.
Oh god, yeah, I have it on 360. I have it on PS3. I bought the Game of the Year edition on 360 or PS3. Like I own multiple copies of it. Never played it yet. I don't know why. I even own the DLC that I bought when it was on sale on Xbox 360, which is
well, you got to. It's a vampire DLC. You gotta buy it.
I bought all the DLC. I never played the game.
In somewhere in way, Skyrim was almost my game of 2012 because it came out fairly late in the year.
It was November 11th.
And I just spent the entire 2012 playing Skyrim. I don't even know. I couldn't tell you what it's. I mean, what more can be said about Skyrim at this point, though?
It gets a lot of hate nowadays. I feel like unfairly.
It's because they keep re-releasing it.
Yeah, which is that's a fair criticism, but it's hard to understate like the impact that game had. That was my first like fantasy RPG, like really going into the medieval stuff and whatnot and dragons, and it just blew me away. The open world is great. The way that they introduce their side stories, which is probably like the best part of the game in my opinion. I know the like main story gets a lot of hate, and I was a similar way of whenever I first played through I didn't really touch the main story for like my first 50 hours because I talked to this person and next thing I know I'm on a quest for the Dark Brotherhood and this assassins guild and stuff like that. And the way that it naturally introduces that stuff and then also makes those missions compelling is just done so well in that world. And there's multiple guilds and like multiple little quest lines that you can go down, and it's such a good experience.
Yeah,
it's on my list. It's such a big game that I just can't. It keeps me away. Games that are so huge like that, I stay away from because I like my linear game.
Right, so you probably would like the game that got shat on for being linear that was released on the same day as Skyrim. Skyrim would be Skyward Sword.
Was that the same day? That's insane.
Oh well,
11/11.
Okay,
I'm almost positive they were.
My wiki says November 18th for Skyward Sword.
Okay, so it's a week later. Okay.
Well,
I have actually never played it.
North American, and then maybe it was Japan 11/11.
But absolutely.
No, Japan was November 23rd.
Oh, okay.
These are absolutely like two parallel points of video game development. And I think like you have to understand like at this time, like Japan was kind of getting shat on as like Japan's falling apart. They're not keeping up with Western developers.
Yeah. BioWare, Mass Effect.
Yeah. And like KJ Inafune had just quit Capcom like the year before. He's the Mega Man guy. He was like talking about like video games in Japan need to evolve or they're going to die. And Japan fucking sucks and they're behind. And then you get Skyrim that comes out, and it's like this big, huge flashpoint for video games like open, computer-style art, Western RPGs. And then Skyward Sword comes out, and it's like, it's an open world, kind of like Skyrim, except it's like very on rails, and you have to like do things like very prescriptive style, and there's not like a lot of ways you can go off the beaten path. And so that was like a point where people were saying like, Nintendo sucks and they're behind. And Skyrim is like the future. And I mean, that kind of bears out in like the Breath of the Wild is much more substantially open, kind of related to Skyrim. But Skyrim was just so big. And I feel like the amount of like open world RPGs and do whatever the fuck you want games of the PS4 generation are a direct response to Skyrim. And I guess Fallout and Oblivion. But
yeah, I think that's fair.
Fucking deal.
I would like to call out my favorite part of Skyrim is the skill tree, which sounds like a weird thing, but I'm obsessed with it because whenever you go to upgrade your character, you look up to the constellations, and each like thing that you want to upgrade, whether that's lockpicking or sneaking or magic or combat, each has its own individual constellation, and you fill in the stars to upgrade those areas. And that's such a unique and cool way to introduce a upgrade screen instead of it just being, hey, here's a menu and go through and pick whatever you want and just slide the numbers a little bit and that'll be good to go. Like I really appreciate just how they kind of lean into the mystical and like really putting you in that time period and be like, no, this is a logical thing that makes sense. Like look up to the constellations. You can upgrade that way.
You can talk better.
You have better speech now.
Oh, here's a comment I want to read from Sergio Silva. He said, Mind Jack. No, I'm joking. My favorite 2011 game is Saints Row the Third. Mind Jack is fucking awful. Don't ever play it. It is. So I play, especially, this was achievement whore, Mike. I would play most games. I could not play Mind Jack. It was that terrible. I'm like, I don't give a shit. I'm on easy. I can't. Just
I don't
game
even know
got
what that
shelved.
is.
Terrible. I bought it twice, but terrible game. I bought second time after I played it the first time, but yeah, let's not go there.
The only thing I know about Mind Jack is that it is memorable to me as having one of the most bland covers of any box art I've ever seen.
And it got my attention though because it was published by Square Enix. So I was excited to play it, and it was a huge disappointment when I played it. Huge. So yeah, don't play that game ever. Skyward Sword I have never played, but I keep meaning to go back to one day.
It's all right.
Buy the Switch version. And
I have also never played it.
I hate motion controls.
I never played the Wii game. I mean, the prospect, it's the selling point. It's like I don't really want to stand and use my arm in like a fancy move for 50 hours. Like it's like, oh well, it's heavily based on like when you attack this thing, you got to do diagonal angles and then up angles. And I'm like, I don't want to do that.
And you also had to buy the additional like
Wii Motion Plus.
Yeah,
I'm a Nintendo Mark, so yeah, you did. I'm a Nintendo Mark, so I already had it. But I'm like, I don't want to play this type of game for 50 hours, and it's supposedly like that long. I played it on the Switch. It's fine. It's fun to see like, oh, here's another 3D style Zelda like Ocarina and Twilight Princess and Wind Waker. Again, because like Breath of the Wild is such a radical departure, and they haven't made another 3D Zelda in 10 years. So if you haven't played Twilight Princess, which is 15 years old at this point, like here's another one which you didn't play, and I'm like, yeah, I like it, but also I don't feel compelled to finish it. So, but it's enjoyable for what it is. Its puzzles are clever, but I may just be 3D Zelda out of this type of style.
Makes sense. I know one game that Blake has been dying to talk about is Mass Effect 2
for PS3.
Well,
oh, it didn't come out for 360
where to
this
begin?
Year?
I have to say, it was 360 in 2010, and then I think the PlayStation 3 version was 2011.
I played it in 2011, so if that helps.
You know what? It's fine. Let's talk about it real quick.
Man, so I just refinished it not too long ago, thanks to the Legendary Edition. But God, that was just such a seminal game in my like gaming career. I honestly don't even know where to begin. Like, has everyone here played it?
Absolutely. One of my favorites of all time.
Let's hear it.
So when I was this memory that will always be ingrained in my brain, not for a good reason. I was playing Mass Effect 2. I worked at Sam's Club, and I couldn't sleep that night because I was having terrible, terrible tooth pain because I needed to get a root canal, which I didn't know at the time. And I couldn't sleep, so I'm like, if I gotta stay awake, if I'm in so much pain, I'm just gonna play Mass Effect 2. So I played Mass Effect 2 all night instead of sleeping to go to work the next day. Went to work, was still in terrible pain, got an emergency appointment for a dentist, which I hadn't seen like 5 years at the time because insurance, because I was in my early 20s. And then like, yeah, you need a root canal and a crown. And that memory has always stuck with me because of Mass Effect 2, because they're joined together now. And I was playing Mass Effect 2 that night, and I think I did Kasumi Stolen Memory that night too.
Nice.
Not a good one.
I think the suicide mission might be one of just the best segments in gaming. Just the lead up to it, the stake, every bit about it is just gaming nirvana.
I think that's what makes it so great is the stakes are set up just immediately. I mean, people like to talk about, greatest opening moments in games, like seeing Rapture and stuff like that. But to me, in my mind, Mass Effect 2 stands out as just immediately saying, hey, this is a sequel. This is bigger. The stakes are high because of what we're doing right here in the opening. And then it just never lets up. Framing the entire game around that suicide mission is such a smart thing to do. And then the fact that they really hold you accountable with that regard of being like, hey, this is a suicide mission. If you don't do everything right, like these people that you care about, these characters that you've come to love, they will die. Like you.
And that just didn't happen, right? Like, I mean, like, obviously you can lose characters. Right. But like, so Final Fantasy VII, just as an example, like you lose Eris, but that's part of the story. But like I play Mass Effect 2 and I lose Miranda and Jack. My friend loses Jacob and Thane. That's like an organic fucking tale that it was just mind blowing to me. Like these organic stories that come about based on your choices and events that happen to you in the game is just phenomenal.
When I played, nobody died because the guy told me what to do.
Oh, no, you gotta go cold for that one. No.
Yeah, full blind for the first person.
Yeah, this was my first game that I ever played with like relationships and relationship management. Like I had more fun. I mean, the missions themselves, I'm like, I'm kind of lukewarm on it. It's kind of a hot take. It's like, oh, it's just walk down a corridor, shoot a few things. But I really want to get back to the ship, and I'm going to talk to everybody after this mission. And it was the first game where I'm like, oh, I'm going to hook up with this character, which I've never played a dating sim. Maybe I should, because that was like my goal. Is like, I'm going to hook up with every single person on the ship. That was my goal. I think I hooked up with the guy. Jacob was his name. Like that. He was my main. So it was Femshep, and I was like, I'm going to hook up with this guy. And that was my entire goal. And I had more fun with that. And that was so novel to me. The idea of just like talking to all my characters. Yeah, and they were all well acted. I mean, before this, I came from like the time where like video game stories suck. I'm not paying attention to anything. These cutscenes are way too long, and they don't know how to edit. And then Mass Effect is just really, really solid, and the characters are good. They're well acted. It was more fun for me to just go back and talk to everybody after every mission, and that was super novel to me. So then when my characters die, it's like, God damn it! Or I'd make decisions like, yeah, I know Jack is an asshole, but Jack is like really powerful for my team, so we just need to be cool, guys. So I think like I ended up being more of a renegade because I would just defend Jack just to please her and make her happy at the expense of everybody else in my team because I needed her for her powers, or at least I thought so.
I listened to fucking Jacob. He was like, just send me into the vents, bro. Like I'll volunteer. And I was like, well, fucking Jacob, do it, sure.
No, and I'm like, but Jacob, I love you, Jacob. You're not doing that. Miranda, who I don't like, you're going in there. Miranda, we clashed. We did not match.
It is insane to me that for every character that they introduce throughout the course of that game, each one of them just hits a high mark for me. Of
absolutely,
they're all
like
so good.
That cast of characters is so good, and the way that they do the like progressing your relationships of like talking to them, and then you got to go on a mission with them and stuff like that, and you want to because each individual character just has such an interesting and different kind of story than what any other character is going through, whether that's Thane and his kind of religious background, or even Garrus just turning into a badass rebel for some reason. Like they really hit it out of the park with introducing a character and immediately that character just grabbing you and be like, yeah, no, this is somebody that I want to get to know and spend time with. Like they have interesting stuff going on. I kind of want to see this through to the end.
Morden, just the goat for me.
Morden is
I would die for Morden.
I can't remember any of the characters. All I remember is the one memory of me getting a root canal. Everything else in this game, I don't remember. That's all I got. It's all blank.
And so, is it Mass Effect 2? Was there anything else? Because I have a segue that I wanted to get to.
Sure, no, please do.
So we talk about great intros, and Mass Effect 2 is absolutely up there. But I think Dead Space 2, which also came out in 2011,
I was just going to go there.
Perhaps the greatest like introductory segment of all time, and I firmly believe that.
I'm actually at the time that you're hearing this, there's a very good chance I've already played Dead Space 2 on the show because I would have, because we're actually doing Dead Space 2 here real soon. I have not. I'm fine with talking, but I have not played it since shortly after it came out, and I can't wait to go back to it.
So good, and just the intro. I mean, it is just a high watermark, and holy fucking shit, what is happening right now? Like moments in gaming, so good.
I'm
easily
so excited
one of the
to replay
scariest games that I've played. I mean,
absolutely.
Dead Space 1 is very, very good, and I'm glad that's getting a remake. I hope that it sells well because I'd love to see Dead Space 2 get the same treatment because it's just a step up in every way, in my opinion, from guns to the story to the setting to the enemy design. Those freaking babies just haunt my dreams.
The eyeball.
And it's so well done. Just so.
But the trailer. I just remember the trailer. I'm actually watching it right now as we're talking. It has Rat in a Cage, which I don't even like. I didn't know the song at the time, but that is a fucking awesome trailer. If you just look up official launch trailer, Dead Space 2.
I haven't. When you say Rat, is that like you mean the Smashing Pumpkins? Is that what?
Yeah. But on my rage, I'm still just a rat in a cage. The only reason I know the song because of this trailer. I never listened to Smashing Pumpkins.
I love it.
So it's out. I don't remember anything about the game other than I remember I really, really liked it. I think I blocked it out because at the time that this game came out that I played it was the same time my ex had came back to visit because I lived with her parents because we had a kid together and she left. Long story. But she came back to visit and she brought her husband. We had just been broken up for like maybe a year and a half. And I remember him bringing this game with him, so that's my awesome memory of this game. Which is not a good thing, but very awkward situation.
Let's just do a podcast on that whole story.
It will come up more in depth when I or already came up in depth. I'm sure when I cover this episode, it's going to come up because it's
oh my god,
game.
Such a good game. Absolutely.
I will say, just as a small dig against Dead Space 2, that game does have random difficulty spikes that can be frustrating at times. Like there's an elevator sequence that sticks out in my mind anytime I think about Dead Space 2 for just being stuck on it for way longer than I probably should have. I don't know if it was just me, but it gets difficult at times.
I seem to remember like a 0G segment that was a little wonky. Maybe that was another Dead Space, but there was one where you're in like 0G and it's just a little disorienting. And
there is some 0G in 1, but I think it's not what you're thinking. I think it's your 2 or 3.
Yeah, I can't.
Remember.
It's been a while. That's why I'm so excited for the remake. As someone else pointed out, like that's going to be exciting.
I'm just excited to replay 2. Well, I already did play 2. I'm hearing it. Nah, the remake does look cool though. Oh, and since this is a comment that I was going to read before we segued into Dead Space 2, but from AJ Gonzalez, probably Dead Space 2, but Warhammer 40k Space Marine will always have a special place in my heart. That is a decent game if you never played it.
Never played it.
It's just a hack and slash kill things, and you're set in the 40k universe, which doesn't mean anything to me, but cool game. I bought it for 360 and PS3.
Yeah, I remember it being. I bought it on sale. I never played it, but on a Steam sale. But I do remember it being
just like me.
Yes, it's very, very similar path. And so, but yeah, I remember it being touted as like, oh, there's a lot of Warhammer games, and there really are. But this is one of the better ones. Is what I was like. Oh, that sounds interesting. And Space Marine sounded interesting enough. I bought it and then never fired it up. But
well, here's a random question I want to read from Sean McCauley. Dungeons of Dreadmore. So good I forced my way through the really weird art, played the fuck out of this.
Never
have either. It was a most comments are the same games and that one was different, so I wanted to read that.
Dungeons of Dreadmore.
Yeah.
It sounds vaguely familiar. That's about all I got.
Here's one from OM, because I can't read his name, so I apologize. There were a few great games that year, like Limbo or Portal 2, but I will just list the ones I played the most. I mean, there's a bunch of other like Dark Souls, Skyrim. But Limbo, I fucking hate Limbo.
Oh, I fucking love Limbo.
Oh, really? I think
it's a shit game.
2011. That's a good game.
I don't know why. It's a hot take, and I know that, but I did not enjoy Limbo. Like, sure, they made a great game. It looks cool. I do not enjoy it at all.
Literally number 2 on my top 10 of the year. So
sorry, I had to get it out there. I just don't know.
So what is it you don't like about it?
I died a lot. I didn't like the art style. I didn't like everything being black and white. I didn't just. Maybe it could have been the
whole thing. Like,
it might have been the time when I played this game. I played this game back in 2011 or 2012, or whenever when it went on sale. I would have picked it up because people talked about it, and I just didn't enjoy it. Actually, wait. I played this on PS4 in an HD collection. I still didn't enjoy it. So I don't know. I will replay it someday for the show because I should, but I just don't like it.
Yeah, something didn't click with me for it. Like, I mean, I like traversal puzzles, as we mentioned with Portal 2. And this is, again, just like try to get to a place and, work within your environment. And for some reason, Limbo just never worked for me. And I've tried a few times. I don't know. Just never liked it.
How did you guys feel about Inside? Did you take the leap on that one? No?
Oh, either.
Yeah. I didn't like it as much as Limbo, which seems to be kind of contrarian, but I loved them both. Absolutely.
Okay. And then there's a couple games I'm purposely waiting on to bring. We're going to start wrapping this up soon because we're getting on 2-hour mark of recording. One game that we have to mention that actually a few people have said on here, which I don't have as fond memories of. Let's see, where's the question I can read it with? Okay, from Joseph M. Okay, so my favorite game that came out that year was Uncharted 3 Drake's Deception. Why? I never had a console growing up, and when my dad bought us PC games, they were almost always used and a couple years old. When I finally was able to afford to buy my own consoles, they were used, like the GameCube. I finally saved enough money to buy my own PS3, which I still have this day, which came with Uncharted 3. I played this once, years later, and I did not enjoy it as much as 2 or 4.
No,
I feel like that's how most people feel about it, which sucks because, I don't know, it's weird how similar it is to Gears of War 3, which also released this year, in that it was the conclusion to a trilogy. And for whatever reason, I just feel like people weren't as hot on it as the game that preceded it. But it's still a really solid game. Like, it has some incredible set pieces, whether it's the cruise ship sinking or like the whole plane sequence is very cool. And I think it's a good, satisfying conclusion to that trilogy.
I just think they're boring. I've just always found
Uncharted 1 is not
the
good.
whole Uncharted. They just don't do it for me.
It's good then. It's not.
I love Tomb Raider. I love the Tomb Raiders that are modeled after Uncharted, but I don't like Uncharted. I don't know what the difference is.
The Dude Raider doesn't do it for me.
I think it's the bow and arrow. It just rules in Tomb Raider.
Oh yeah, it does.
Yeah.
That remake. 2 and 4 of Uncharted are fucking amazing. 1 is it's just hard and doesn't age as well because that game has some huge
1
difficulty
has
spikes.
aged so bad.
3, I think I just had issues with the fact that I didn't like every Uncharted game. Spoiler alert, has a supernatural element to it, and I didn't like where they go in 3 with the element. It just didn't do it for me. So, but I want to play it again because I want to see maybe. Also, I don't know my opinion with colors. I played 1, then 2, then 3, so I might have just been like, "Fuck this! I'm tired of this." Don't play all 3 in a row in one month.
That's how I did it. I did it with the collection, and I think I got a little burnt out.
I just bought all 3 on PS3 at different times and put them all together.
Because there was definitely like a collection, the Uncharted collection, which was also a PS Plus game for PS4 at one point.
Yeah, it's on PS4.
It's definitely worth replaying. I think, like you said, approaching it the best way would probably be deciding to play it individually, so you're not, coming off the adrenaline rush of 2 and just how 2 kind of really hit all the notes that it needed to, and then going into 3 and it being more of the same and you're just kind of burnt out. I think playing 3 kind of in a box helps to highlight the fact that this is what this studio made a name for itself with, like those set pieces, and they're still just as good in 3. Like, it has some really good moments.
Okay, and then there's another game we should mention, which has been on the show before. Batman Arkham City came out this year.
Yes.
And a lot of people put that as their top game.
It's on my list.
A lot of people did.
Not number 1, but I think it is a fantastic game, and in my opinion, maybe the best licensed video game of all time.
He played Arkham Origins? I'm a huge defender of Arkham Origins. I'm not saying the best. I just had to make that joke.
I don't think I did. I played, obviously, Asylum and Arkham Knight. I don't think I ever played Origins.
You should play Origins.
I also never played Origins. I just stuck with that main game trilogy.
I will defend Origins forever. I am a big fan, but I did an episode about it too, and I really like that game. I think it gets way too much hate. But a couple comments I want to read before we dig into Arkham City. Brad Golding, Arkham City for sure. I know there's more, but I can't find them at the moment. But a lot of people did put Arkham City here as one of their top games. Yes. I bought it at midnight. I went and picked it up. I played it that night. Or no, I didn't buy this game at midnight. I bought Arkham Asylum midnight. I actually was going to buy this at midnight, but instead I ordered on Amazon because it was $10 cheaper and I got a shirt. So
fucking bargain.
But how are you going to get that Catwoman DLC exclusive to
It came with it.
Oh,
the Catwoman came with new games.
Okay.
The exclusive DLC
was that
at the
Project
time
$10
was
or whatever?
Robin was exclusive at Best Buy. I don't think GameStop had an exclusive one for this one. GameStop did have an exclusive one before for Arkham Asylum, which was the Scarecrow crap.
Another big multiplayer game. Shout out, or multipliers, not multiplayer. More multipliers for all of us.
Does Arkham City have multiplayer?
No, Arkham Origins does.
Multipliers galore, though.
Yeah,
that is actually a fun mode.
It is. Yeah, fantastic. Absolutely. Fantastic combat and just a great way to showcase it.
It's such a good game. Arkham City still holds up. I played it this year. I don't fucking remember. I did it on the show. Go look it up. But I played it. It was great. I had a great time. It still holds up.
Yeah, it was a great upgrade from Asylum, which is basically like a really self-contained Metroidvania from 2 years earlier.
Yeah,
it's really solid. It's kind of like the Alien to Aliens jump, where just everything was bigger and kind of changing the genre into an open world action RPG. And I think it's for the better to just make them like radically different games. I still like Asylum more. I think it's just a little more tight. And I like the story it's telling a little more. But City is a really cool game. I played it in the wake of Spider-Man 2018. So I was more into Spider-Man than I was into Batman. But what are you going to do?
I think there's something to be said about just traversing that city. And it's kind of a similar thing like you said with Spider-Man. I feel like for a lot of people, that's what stands out about that game of just swinging through the city feels so good. And for me, it was a similar thing in Arkham City of being able to like rappel up and basically like shoot yourself up and then just kind of glide to where you were trying to get to go. It feels so good. Like just moving through that city feels amazing.
The Riddler trophies for me, like that was my favorite part of the game. Just like little environmental puzzles, like almost Breath of the Wild, a shrine you know, on a much smaller scale, obviously, but just like tons of little environmental puzzles just dotted all over the map. I love that.
I also feel like you can't not talk about the Mr. Freeze fight. It's a really great boss fight of just
yes, it is
introducing like, hey, here you've been using all of these gadgets throughout the game. Now you're gonna have to use them all. Like you have to. Like it's kind of like a puzzly fight to a degree.
Yeah.
And it's just done so well of making you really just use your entire arsenal as Batman to take down a big bad.
For sure. Totally agree.
And do you guys have any like random games that you want to mention that we haven't gotten to yet before we get to our last one that I want to mention?
So, I mean, I've got some ideas on what the last one is, but what I
put it in chat. So
yeah, you did.
Okay.
Yeah, you just called it.
on purpose.
So I've got two for sure,
Okay.
but I'm interested. Anyone else have anything they want to throw out?
I only have one.
I have one that's interesting that we vaguely mentioned, and then I have one that I think is cool, but I can talk about those very quickly.
Sure, go ahead, Vince.
Well, okay.
So the interesting one is the Old Republic, the BioWare MMO, which I don't know a darn thing about, but I remember the marketing said it's basically KOTOR's 3, 4, 5, and 6, because it's that big. And I was like, and this was like when Mass Effect and Dragon Age were huge. BioWare was at their peak. So like the idea of the Old Republic like really fascinated me. I don't know a darn thing about it. I think it's still active, but like that intrigues me just like on a level, but not enough to play it. I'm not going to invest in a monthly subscription or free to play model. And then the other game I really find very charming is Rayman Origins.
Yes,
that's
one of my two.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's so fun. It's just it took Rayman post Raving Rabbids and post his 3D games of like Rayman 3 and Rayman 2 and put him back in a 2D platformer with that beautiful like Ubi art style, like hand drawn. It's just a really fun, solid little platformer. Legends may be better, the one that came out after this.
I think but I'm with you here totally.
But
like
Origins was just like boom, this came out and I'm like, holy shit, this is fun.
Serotonin distilled into video game form is like the Rayman platformers.
Mm-hmm. So good.
Yes, I'm glad. My other one is The Binding of Isaac, which I don't think anyone has mentioned.
No, we have not. We did get one comment that I don't think I can find where he did mention that was one of his favorite games from 2011.
That's my number 5 on my initial list of like my games of the year, and just a seminal roguelike. I feel like, I mean, something that everyone should play, in my opinion. It marries one of those games that just takes its art design and gameplay and story and just marries them in such a perfect way.
An absolute perfect Switch game. If you have a Switch, and
Totally.
you're looking for something to play, Binding of Isaac is perfect for those, just kind of short little sessions for you to go through and have your fun with it. There's enough variety in the upgrades and the characters and the weapons and stuff like that you get. And if you're into roguelikes or roguelikes, I can't recommend it enough. It's so good.
Yeah. The only other two... Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I just found it a little gross.
It is a gross game.
And not like all poo-poo jokes are funny, but this was like goo coming out of people, which I was like, not a fan.
So I don't have super fond memories of these, but Beyond Good and Evil 2 HD and Rocksmith were two, like the last two games I just wrote down that someone may have a connection to.
I bought Rocksmith.
Rocksmith's cool as like an idea.
I carried it around for over 9 years before I finally just dropped it off at Goodwill. Does that count?
Yeah, it's fair.
I never opened it. I mean, I just carried the guitar from one place to another because I got it for dirt cheap because someone bought it at Sam's Club and returned it, so we had to mark it down. I got it for like $20 and I just held on to it. I'm like, I'm never going to do this. And then I dropped it off. That's my story, Rocksmith.
The only other one I have to mention, and I briefly alluded to it earlier, is Gears of War 3, which to me, again, suffers from that same problem that Uncharted 3 have of just being more of the same. I think Gears of War 2 is really well received and sold well, and it was a fun game. And Gears of War 3 is just more of the same.
Yeah.
Like, if you like those games, then you know what to expect going in. I think it does a good job of wrapping up that trilogy and giving it a satisfying conclusion. But there's really no innovation whatsoever there. Like, it is the Gears of War that you've known to either love or hate. And you have that cover-based shooting. The multiplayer is still great in 3, and that was a big draw for me.
Horde mode, fantastic.
Horde mode is super great. It's just a really solid game that I feel like, for whatever reason, people were just maybe burnt out on it and don't talk about it as much as they probably should, because it really is a satisfying conclusion to that story.
It would be a top 3 game played, like playing time, probably behind Mass Effect 2 and Skyrim for me. I played a lot.
It's a good game. I've beaten it once and I enjoyed it and never went back.
Yeah,
that's
me. Fair too.
Oh, and the one comment I was talking about earlier from Andrew Gerdes, he said, Blank is the easy answer, but the Binding of Isaac deserves some appreciation as well. Blank, it's not Blank, but I'm saying it Blank.
Blank is the game that you've been holding back.
Yes, and from this one, I missed this one earlier from Isaiah Bailey. Dead Space 2 is one of the best horror games ever. So there's that.
Fair.
Okay. Let's see. I'm looking for... Okay, this one I missed from earlier, but I want to read from Danny Palacio. Batman Arkham City, hands down. I'm a big Batman fan. Absolutely loved the first game. I was so hyped for the game that I went to a midnight release of it and played it for a few hours when I got home. Skyrim was also really amazing, though.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just looking for one particular comment that I want to read, and then we're going to talk about the... Did you guys have any more honorable mentions you want to mention while I'm looking this up? Yeah, that was fun.
That's all of mine.
I think we got almost everything in there.
All right, and this comment from Jake Terrell, Dark Souls, baby!
Woo-hoo.
I've been purposely waiting to say this. So I have some good stories with this game. So when Dark Souls came out, I don't like hard games, as anyone who listens to the show will know. I don't like hard games. I don't like it. And Dark Souls came out. I had a guy I was working with that was at Sam's School with me. We would talk, and he's like, yeah, I got Dark Souls, and it's really good. And he convinced me to pick it up. So I went and bought it. I got to the gargoyles, and I hated the game. I'm like, this is a shit game. This is too hard. It's too stupid. I don't like it. And I put it away. And then, a year or two goes by and I pick it up again. I'm like, I really want to play this. And I got it for free on Xbox Gold at one point. So I'm at my girlfriend's at the time and I'm playing it. I hooked up my 360. This is when I'm in between apartments. I'm in a really bad point in my life. And I'm playing it. And I remember starting, I'm kind of liking it. And then I had to stop. Because she didn't want me to play it for one reason or another. Probably because she had a 6-year-old, 7-year-old kid right there. So, maybe I shouldn't be playing Dark Souls. But whatever. And then I didn't pick it up again. It wasn't until like 3 years later or so I'm like, you know what? I'm going to give this game a try. And it clicked. I played it on PS3 and it just, something about that game grabbed me. And I found out that it's the only game I ever played this way completely. But I would use a YouTube video, watch an area, listen to a podcast, watch out for fireballs, talk about the area. And then I would do it myself. And for some reason, it was like the weirdest way I played this game. But everything was Dark Souls for like a month. Everything. I mean, I was watching, listening. Everything was just Dark Souls nonstop. And I loved it.
I had a similar experience. I got Dark Souls and Arkham City for Christmas. And I think that's what pulled me away from it was, one, I just never played anything like it before. And a similar situation, I got to those gargoyles, they kicked my ass, and I was like, you know what? I'm having more fun as Batman. I'm going to go do that. And I just didn't play it again for like a year. And one day I was going through, like, trying to find something to play, and I was like, you know what? I should give this another shot. And for whatever reason, just being willing to sit down and actually dedicate the time to play it, because there was nothing else out at the time that I was really interested in, it completely grabbed me and quickly became one of my favorite games of all time.
Oh, and a quick story I want to say before I pass the mic on. So I have one of my funniest stories. So when I was playing Dark Souls, I got to Sen's Fortress and I couldn't do it. I was getting my ass handed to me. My wife was at work. She's like, oh, hey, come for lunch. Okay, so I come for lunch. We're having some. She's like, what's wrong? I'm like, nothing. What's wrong? I'm all upset. I'm like, I can't get through Sen's Fortress. She's like, really? And it's always stuck with me because it was just, she was the concern. All of a sudden when she found out what it was, the concern just went away in a heartbeat. It was like, really? You're upset about this?
You don't know.
I couldn't do Sen's Fortress. I did do Sen's Fortress. I beat Iron Giant that night, by the way, before I picked her up from work, and I was very happy. But fuck that, the Sen's Fortress is that was fucking hard in Dark Souls. But
sounds like you guys are honestly smarter than me. I banged my head against the fucking gravesite for like hours. It was just like this, like fuck this. And
in the beginning, like whenever you get to the first,
literally very beginning,
no.
yeah, don't go there.
No, yeah, I mean like 5-6 hours. I was like, this game fucking sucks, and like put it away, and then.
Vincent, how about you? Have any experience with Dark Souls?
I never played it because all the marketing around it scared me. I remember reading like all the people like around like even Demon Souls. I was reading all the 1-up people. So this would have been like your Bob Mackies, your Cat Baileys, your Jimmy Parishes. They were all like really high, or maybe Ray Barnholt too. And they were all really high on Demon Souls at the time. And then Dark Souls was coming out and I'm like, oh, okay, well, this is a sequel to it. I'm familiar. It's like a get good game. And I was just like, this is not the style of game like I want to play, and like having to go get my souls back. It doesn't sound like a fun thing if I lose. Like I'm actually going to like be worse. I mean, it's fine. I played in Shovel Knight. It's fine. But at the time I was like, oh, all the prospects of it don't sound good. And like anything that requires me to dodge with timing, like is just like never going to work for me. Like I can't play Bayonetta or any of those. I think El Shaddai is actually one of those games that's that way. So maybe that'd be a bad investment of time for me because I just don't like to have to wait and dodge and be patient and learn combat. I just like to mash my head like a Dynasty Warriors game.
Don't play Hellblade because that's like 90% of that game.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Blake, what were you going to say about Dark Souls before we lost you?
Yeah, so I'm not sure where I cut off. Just like I just fucked it up, like literally banging my head against that late game area, of course. And then a year later, come back and realize like, oh, I'm an idiot. I wasn't even in the right spot, and of course, ended up loving it.
Okay. Oh, and I have one last funny story with this game. So I played this game wrong because that's what I do. It's an RPG. So there's a point in this game where you go to the painted world of something it's called, and you can sit there and grind the same enemies over and over and over again. And I did it for 3 days straight. I would just keep, I'd load up the game, I'd play for hours and just grind, play for hours and just grind. And then when I finally went to go finish the game and went past that part, everything was nice and easy because I played it like an RPG. I just grinded forever.
I did the same when I played through it. Grind my way to victory, baby.
I put 70 hours into this game.
70 hours? Nice.
I have not played the remastered because
Remaster's good.
I have a part-time job now that consumes my life called Games My Mom Found, so I could never play this game again. I shouldn't say part-time job. It's a fucking full-time job. Who am I kidding? But it pays me $1 a month right now. But that's where I just couldn't. But someday I will play Dark Souls again.
It's interesting that there's something about the way that introducing that mechanic of, hey, you die, you're going to lose everything, you have to go back and get it. And I personally had not a great reaction to that whenever I first started playing it. And I think that was part of my frustration with quitting the first time that I did whenever I got to the gargoyles. And it's weird how that feeling just kind of goes away as the game goes on because you get so much for beating a boss.
Oh, yeah.
And then you're also, finding items in the world that you can use to gain more souls and level up and stuff like that. Or if you want to farm, you can farm. And as the game went on, I just began to appreciate that aspect more often because I would be powerful enough to where, hey, this person caught me off guard or this trap caught me off guard. Okay, that's fine. I'm going to be ready for you next time, though, and I'm going to get those souls back. And it became less of a frustration in that first area of, okay, I can't beat this first boss. I'm trying to get to this first boss, and now I've just lost my 2,000 souls that I'm so just bent up about. And then 20 hours in, I have 20,000 souls that I'm just sitting on. And, hey, the next boss might be over here. I guess I'm going to go ahead and journey on and see what I can find.
It's that kind of game. Someday I'm going to do it for the show, but it's going to be done differently. So, because I can't beat it in a week.
Do you have a favorite boss? Anybody?
I don't remember. I just remember the vagina dragon that gave me a lot of trouble. That will always be its name.
The vagina dragon?
It's called the gaping dragon, but I swear that's what it looks like.
The gaping dragon. That sticks out to me as well.
That's where I first quit the game, and then it wasn't until years later came back. And when I beat that dragon, the amount of fear that dragon put in me when I beat it, I jumped up for joy. I cheered. I was so happy. Took multiple
fucking
tries.
Sweet boss design. Just great game design in general there. For sure.
All right, any last thing to say about Dark Souls? I'll take that as a no.
Its influence cannot be stated enough. Whenever you look at these games, we were talking about how, Skyrim kind of paved the way for open world games. Mortal Kombat really set up a new trend for fighting games. And it's just unbelievable to see 10 years from now how Dark Souls has found its way into so much of the greater conversation of the industry, whether it's the kind of wrapping environments of leading you back to where you were before and that good game design, or if it's the losing your souls mechanic being placed in other stuff, or just difficulty in general kind of coming back and being something that people were interested in and wanting a challenge. It's unbelievable how it's influenced the industry.
A whole genre, Souls-like. Literally.
And before we wrap up this episode, I'm just going to read a few of the comments that I got for games in general that I've been skipping from I'm sorry, M. Hayshaw. Dark Souls. It was a time in my life where I wasn't doing much gaming, even though I had been doing something since I was 2. I didn't have a lot of time for it because I was going to work and school at the time, and I also felt like most games that were coming out were lacking originality or didn't provide me any sort of challenge. And my friend gave me Dark Souls for my birthday, and it was like I was a kid playing Nintendo again. It was challenging and interesting with so many things to explore, so much dependent on how well you built your character and how you use them. It completely restored my love of gaming. From Gale Wynn, Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. Let me see here. Lucas Mercer, Dark Souls, and then Dark Souls, because it's one of the greatest ever made. Not wrong.
Yeah, that's fair.
All from this group. I'm just going to double check a couple more that I might have missed. Oh, here's one from Cody Smith. Halo Combat Evolved Anniversary Edition. Put on a click on how to do a remaster. It's a good game.
That is true. It had that thing where you could press the button and switch between new graphics and old graphics without having to go to a menu, which is an absurd thing to put into a game, but is so cool whenever you get into those moments and you just by the click of a button, you can be like, oh yeah, I remember why this library was so confusing.
From Nick Levac, Dark Souls. Andrew Lean, Easy Pick, Dark Souls, one of the GOATs and influenced practically every other game that came after it. And the last comment I want to read from Autumn Severe. I refuse to pick a game. So many good games came out that year.
That's fair.
Yeah, it is a classic year.
It's, one thing I love about doing these year in games, I never look at the year ahead of time. I just pick it and say, okay, let's see where we go. I only done it twice so far.
Nailed it twice in a row now.
2007, because that was the year my son was born. In 2011, because it was 10 years ago at the point that we're recording this, and you're here, and you will hear this in 2021. It might be December, but you will hear this in 2021. I will make sure of that.
Nice.
So, because that was supposed to be recorded a long time ago, and I just didn't do it. And I think we should go to our final segment of this episode. Is going to be we're going to talk about everyone's top 3 games, or just we already talked about them, I'm sure. But Vincent, would you like to go first?
Sure. So, starting with my list, number 3, Mortal Kombat 9. Number 2, Portal 2, and number 1, Super Mario 3D Land. It's the bar.
Wow, 3D Land making the top.
It's so good. It's so good.
It's
legitimately of all of these games, that's the one I will go back and play the most.
I wish
Portal
I felt
2.
the way you do about that game.
Yeah, I love it. It's so fun.
How about you, Blake?
Man, it was really hard. I ended up with Skyrim at number 3, Limbo at number 2, and of course, Mass Effect at number 1.
Okay. Mass Effect 1, I didn't know it came out that year.
Mass Effect 2 at number 1.
I had to. All right. Now, how about you, Lucas?
I had to go. I struggled with number 3 a lot, but ended up giving it to Skyrim just because that game's impact on me at the time it came out can't be understated. And I just have so many fond memories of playing that and talking to my friends about it. Number 2 would be Dark Souls. And the number 1 has to be Portal 2. It's one of the closest things to a perfect game out there, in my opinion.
You're not wrong. All right. My 3 first would be Dead Space 2, because despite all my rage, I'm just a rat in a cage. Number 2 is kind of tied with number 1, but Portal 2, because I only just played it this year and I loved it, but God, that game stuck with me. And my number 1, Chrono Trigger. It did come out this year, though, on iOS, and it is my number 1 game of all time. But my number 1 for 2011 is Dark Souls. Even though I didn't play it. I mean, I hated it in 2011, 2012, but God, did I love it when I went back to it. And I can't stop thinking about how I want to replay it, but my wife will be upset with me if I do, because I've never gotten more upset at a game than I did with Dark Souls. And
I feel like it's time for me. I need to check out the remaster too. I'm going to do it. I never finished Dark Souls. I've finished 2, 3, Bloodborne. I'm going to fucking do it. I'm inspired.
It's well worth it. The remaster.
I will hit you up when we get there someday.
Nice.
Remaster gets rid of a lot of the problems with that original.
If you're gonna play Dark Souls and the way that I played it, and I will recommend it to everyone, watch YouTube videos of what you're doing, of someone that knows what they're doing, so you can, if you're okay, and it will make the game that much more enjoyable. If you're having a hard time in an area, see what to do, because it helps. Because Dark Souls is a puzzle game. I mean, it just is. If you know what to do, you'll be okay. If you don't know what to do, you're gonna get your ass handed to you over and over.
I'm going in blind. Fuck it.
All right. Well, you got my condolences.
It is interesting that there are purists for that game that, insist, hey, don't use a walkthrough or anything like that, when in reality, like, using a walkthrough is super helpful at times for that game. And it doesn't diminish the experience. Like, the challenge is still there. Like, you're going to be running into those enemies that are difficult. You're still going to have to learn those boss patterns. There's nothing wrong with acknowledging the fact that you're lost or you don't know where to go next and just getting that guidance to be able to get to the next part of the game.
Yeah, they're very dense and obscure. There's some things without a guide I just don't think even hardcore gamers
Drake sword
ever see or
the sword that you get early in the game that will make a lot of the game much easier. You won't be invincible, but you'll have a good weapon. You have to shoot a dragon's tail from a certain angle that you would never know to do or even go there in order to get it. And it makes the game a lot easier.
It's like the ring that lets you walk in water. Like that's legitimately, that's like fucking a key item. And it's like most people would never even know how to get it.
That's Dark Souls for you.
You talked about the painted world. I mean, most people would probably skip over that entire area if they either didn't explore the game thoroughly or if they didn't use a guide. I mean, that's just a whole area that you could potentially miss.
That's why I love it. Man, it's going to happen on the show. Just, I don't want to play Dark Souls again, damn it.
I'm inspired now. The fire has been kindled.
Maybe I'll do that someday when I take like a 2-week off vacation. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to play Dark Souls and record about it. That's going to be my job for 2 weeks.
Just emerge with a big bushy beard and like it's done.
I think we should wrap up this episode. Vincent, where can people find you at?
Yeah, so I am the host of Some of My Friends Read Comics. It's a comic book podcast. Mike has been on it when we covered the Super Metroid comic a few weeks ago. You can also find me on our YouTube channel. All my friends are right here. I host a show called That Was a Game, where I look at just weird video games. Generally, right now I've been focusing on spin-offs and sequels of more popular games. I just posted an episode on Spanky's Quest for the Game Boy, and that's All My Friends Are Right here on YouTube. I love that game. It's so good.
Nice.
And Lucas, like, you guys don't have anything to plug, if I remember correctly, right?
No, I don't have anything to plug.
Okay.
If you want to chat,
double check.
You can find me in places, I'm sure. Otherwise, just leave me alone.
Hey, we're in the I watched the entire Overblood Super Replay group on Facebook. All of us, or not all of us, but 3 of us.
Yeah, absolutely. I love to chat with people in there and stuff like that on post. Be nice to me if I say something stupid.
Be kind to Lucas. You can find some of my old Flash reviews on newgrounds.com from 2011. So if you go check those out, they're still around.
All right, and if you enjoyed this show, there are over 250 other episodes for you to listen to. I love being able to say that now. There's 250 episodes of games my mom found. So if they don't all show up on iTunes or Spotify, use Podbean. It will have everything because iTunes, Spotify only go back 100. So if you're sending me a message asking me, where is this episode? That's where it is, and it's all on YouTube. But it's only audio because I have not recorded video yet because I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. So not there. One day. I haven't gone down that rabbit hole yet. But we are on YouTube. Please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. And as you might have been confused when you first heard this episode, we have a new intro and outro currently, thanks to Helena, Hell Half Fury. You will see her link in the show notes to TikTok, because I almost forgot to mention that to you. So if you were confused when you heard this intro, I was confused too, because I forgot I was going to say that until the very end just now. So hey, it makes 2 of us. But there's a new intro currently. So I want to thank that. I better make sure to put that in here. And we have a Patreon. I almost forgot to mention. For as little as $1, you can vote in our Patreon polls. I don't know what it will be this month, but I know there will be at least 1 or 2. Because I don't know exactly when this is coming out. So either November or December. So definitely go check that out. And we will, and thank everyone for listening. Thank you guys for joining me for us to go through the year 2011.
Woo!
There will be more of these. These are fun as hell. So there will be more of these eventually. So we will see you guys all next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.